And welcome to episode 5 of our Tales of Ubersreik. I'm going to immediately bring in Andy because that's much more fun than just looking at me. Today we are diving through all the fun, glorious details of the Ubersreik Adventures for Father Luitpold. This is a particularly fun one for me because, Andy and I wrote the Ubersreik book. So this is going to be us exploring a small quarter of the very book what we did put together. So that's going to be, in and of itself, interesting. Are we going to dive into some of the parts that he is already aware of, or are we going to hear off in a different direction? You'll find out soon. We will start off. I think the best place to start for good old Father Luitpold is the awareness that he's returning to somewhere that he grew up in. Ubersreik is an enormous fortress city down in the south of the Reichland, and most people view Ubersreik as just another one of those Vorburgland towns. Very different from Bergenhafen. The walls are enormous by comparison. The Black Rock castle that dominates a significant chunk of the city is also freaking enormous.
The Magnus Tower.
Yeah, indeed. The largest ballrooms in the Vorburgland, so they boast. And yes, of course, the Magnus Tower as well, over in the precinct. Equally freaking huge. That, however, for the rubbernecking everybody else, is super fascinating. But for him, it's all the banners. That's a good starting point. All hanging down with the glorious colours of Altdorf. That's different. Not only because there are so many of them, hanging down being Altdorfy, but because previously the number of banners that were up, mostly in the colours of Ubersreik, were pretty low. There wasn't a great number of them by the gates. There was a couple hanging down. And there'd be the occasional personal heraldry or alternative Jungfreud heraldry hanging around. If the Duke was in residence, for example, his personal flags would be flying up over Black Rock. If any of his kids were in residence, they would also be flying up their individual personal heraldry. Unless, of course, they were moving around and trying not to say that we are in the castle. But most of the time, their flags would be up. It's obviously completely different now. There's also a few just blank Reichland flags with their white backgrounds kicking around, showing that we're part of the Reichland. We're all in this together. And you can feel the Sigmarism that lies behind much of what's going on here. But you are also aware of the deep lack of Sigmarism that very possibly has
it feels very performative.
Yeah.
This is a political gesture.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But on top of that, there's also the actual seeing of the city in front of you and going, well, you know, I've been around a little bit now. Altdorf's walls are smaller than this and have fewer cannons. I mean, in total, around the entire, far more. But in terms of the cannons per section of wall, far more. Mortars, cannons, various other engineering marvels sitting up there.
And that's new. That's changed, or is that?
No, there was always cannons up there. There's more now, but not many. It's mostly, they've just repurposed what was already there. And there is that moment where you look around it all going, how? How did they take it? What was the process? Yeah. How did they even manage it? Because this is not just defensible, it's massively defensible. And the entirety of Ubersreik all around is cleared. There is no way an army can sneak up in the place.
Well, Luitpold's long had a theory on this, that knowing that how cunning the Graf is and how politically connected the Graf is, and the story was that the Graf fled or left just before. And I have a feeling that he knew it was coming, and rather than getting trapped there where his options were limited, he felt he would have more options. So he almost ceded Ubersreik to them.
That could be it.
Because that then, come what may, there was going to be conflict between him and Altdorf. But the conflict was either he's in a besieged town, in which case, or he leaves, the town survives, and he's in a better position. All of the bad stuff that was going to happen happens, but he's in a better position, fewer people die. And that's the thing, is he's not for all that Gerhardt doesn't always see his softer side. He's not a monster.
No,
he doesn't want his people to die.
He's not a Trot.
No, exactly. He's not a Trot. Trots wouldn't care if the innocent civilians got killed. He won't want the innocent townspeople of Ubersreik to die just for the sake of ego. So if he's like, well, actually, I can be in a geographically stronger place, a politically stronger place, all the fallout that's going to happen is going to happen anyway, but I'm in a better position and fewer people die. that is the responsible
Withdraw
leadership
early,
thing to do.
make your way out.
So that's what I think, is that basically the doors were left open because they knew that they were coming to avoid the fight. That's Luitpold's.
And I think seeing it
Yeah.
probably reinforces that view.
Yeah.
In that looking at it, it seems impossible that if there was anybody awake, and there's always people awake in Ubersreik, it's a fortress city for a reason. There is always the chance that there will be some form of horrible nastiness coming out of the forest. Always the chance. It's not very high. It doesn't happen that often, but it happens often enough that they always have watches up. So, presumably, there was no watch up, or something happened. And that is a lot of weapons. And now, a lot of Altdorf soldiers manning the walls. It's funny moving your way through the Rivergate into the city itself, the ruddy waters, which are, at the moment, a little bit more orange than they would necessarily be at other seasons. You know that when the full flood comes down from the meltwater, the water will run deep red, really red, and you can scoop it out and it's got redness to it, where at the moment, if you scoop it out, it just looks like water. It's the depth of the water that gives it its colour. But you know it will run red like blood. Perhaps an omen. So, the city itself. Blothilda also comes from Ubersreik. Well, at least she's lived here for some time. And she has one of the jetties, which are, as far as she's concerned, a safe harbour. Indeed, she thinks that she can get in there and not even have to pay.
Nice.
Which is super nice.
Yeah.
She, to encapsulate this into the little nubbins that we need, and let's get on to the fun stuff. She indeed does speak to the people in this jetty. It's a private one. She does indeed manage to get it for no fees. She goes off and speaks to some friends. They organise it for 2 weeks without any fees. That's brilliant. And you arrive relatively late in the evening. So everybody's just kicking back, having a little drink. Yumi's gone. Of course she has.
Of course. When did she go? Who knows?
Who knows? Gerhardt and Alan, men and wife, are intending to set off early in the morning to get as much daylight as possible on the road up to Black Rock. And everybody else is just a little bit antsy, aware that they're going to be here for some time. This is, however, from Luitpold's perspective, the beginning of it all. Not just for him and his life and everything, but this is clearly where all the Griffin shit hit the copter.
The gyrocopter.
Hit the copter. This is where it kind of kicked off. And it's strange to be back. Oh. Just in case you can hear it, I'm speaking at the same. My voice is a bit lower because I've got a cold. Speaking exactly the same resonance as the thing. So all I hear is shing, shing from the corner. Totally unimportant detail, but if it's coming across in the recording, I apologise. I'll pitch my voice up slightly higher so that doesn't happen as much.
I thought you were going to point out there's a tiny little fly flying around here.
I'm hearing swing.
So every now and then I keep going like that. It's not because Luitpold's seeing omens. It's because there's a fly catching my eye. So yeah.
So anyway, this is where it all started. He left here over, 2.5 years ago?
More than that, I think.
Now. I mean, it's 2 years up with the Ulrican. Well, they're not Ulrican, but up in Middenheim.
Timeline here.
It's a good number of years since he was last down here.
A couple of years.
The high priest here had assigned him his own little temple in one of the villages not far from here. It didn't turn out quite as well as everybody hoped. Less said about that, the better, and quite possibly that high priest really wants nothing to do with them ever again.
Yeah. But equally, that high priest could have thrown him under the bus.
Yes.
Could have turned him into the temple of the Order of the Cleansing Flame or something like that, but instead sort of suggested that he take himself out of Reikland and find a different order.
And into somebody else's problem.
Yeah, become someone else's problem. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Like he recognised the goodness of Luitpold's intent for all that he lamented the naivety and clumsiness of his implementation.
I think all of those spellings are absolutely correct. Go be someone else's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, love it. So... let us start off at the start. I need to pitch my voice up behind here. Shing, shing. It's going to annoy me throughout the stream.
I like it. It's good. It's dramatic.
So let us start off at the beginning of the next day. The day when Birdie makes it quite clear that she wants to pop up and visit the Temple of Ulrich and pray. Elric is far more interested just getting out into the surrounding countryside so that he can just stretch his legs, get away from the barge. He's pretty much been stuck up in a very tight space for a very long time, and you're aware of just how antsy he's become.
Yeah.
Just how agitated he's become. It's nice to see in the morning as well that Gerhardt is almost looking positive, which you didn't expect given he's about to go to see his father. But perhaps he's also gaining some benefit from the sunlight and getting out. So,
just to clarify, it's been about 5 years.
5 years. Oh, it's been a while. Yeah, because he did a load of touring first, didn't he?
He went, and then he went up to Middenheim in 25, sort of 07, 08, and then left Middenheim in 25, 09.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it's been a long time since he's here. So let's talk about any other potential changes. Yes, there's the sums are still slummy. The dwarves over on the other side, and
there's more slums under the bridge than there usually is because the Jungfraus used to clear those out.
Yes, they did. So that's all filled up there. That's a good call. There's some new buildings and constructions over in the precinct, some of which are spilled over the walls. The Black Rock itself, the top of the walls are bristling with flags and weapons in a way that they weren't previously.
Outdoor flags.
The internal walls within the city of Ubersreik itself are as decorated as the external walls, which just was never the case before. You'd get the occasional flag hanging by a gate and that's it. A pennant hanging down, often with Ubersreik colours, or perhaps the bridge heraldry that they have. But now it's literally everywhere. But they haven't ignored the bridge of Ubersreik. It's here and there, but it's absolutely dominated by the good old cowled skull and Reaper of Aldorf everywhere. It's a bit grim. I mean, for all the bright reds and the blues, bit grim. Everywhere. Not only that, from just...
It's an occupation, right? Like, that's the thing. It's like, it feels like an occupation. And it doesn't feel like a smart thing for an occupier to do unless they're trying to send a message. So either the people in charge are insecure, hence the need to be so performative, or they're really trying to send a message to people that they are broken and that they are down and they need to stay down. Neither of those options are particularly good.
Crump, 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 crump. Many smaller units of soldiers kicking about on the streets as well. Some of them coming down through the docklands, some of them moving up and around on patrols, far more so than is required, to the point of, again, performance. There is a local watch. Altdorf has not replaced the detachment from the old Ubersreik State Army that used to handle all of the policing and patrolling. They're still kicking around every once in a while, you know, because you've been told. You've asked. What's out there? Mostly soldiers. What am I hearing? Soldiers, crump, crump. That's all Altdorf to its core. And it's not great. It's different. It's also different for one other huge reason. He's blind. And this is worth covering to a small degree. His blindness is unique in that he has absolutely no visual capacity. He cannot see. It is empty as far as sight is concerned. But he can see. He's an augur. He is blessed by the gods, and he is able to see things that are different to everybody else. People he sees quite clearly. He's aware of where they are. He sometimes gets their salient details wrong. Like, for example, he can't see Gerhardt's scar. Gerhardt's scar is almost invisible to him because he sees Gerhardt with a capital G and possibly capitals throughout. He sees Gerhardt. Indeed. And he's aware of where everybody is. And that doesn't get impeded necessarily by walls, which can be a bit disconcerting sometimes.
On a small barge, rooms particularly.
Yeah, quite. And occasionally, quite disconcerting because he just loses track of what goes through from one place to another. And for the last couple of weeks, as he's been making his way over here, it's not so much a couple of weeks, last week, as you've been making your way over here, there's been quite a lot of constantly renegotiating with yourself how it all works. As you're like, I've got it this time. Oh, no, not quite. I've got it this time. So I know that's where this is. And then you stumble over a bale. Oh, I missed that. I know where they are. Right, got this, all that. They're sleeping down there. They put curtains up there. Curtains have been put up down in the bottom of the hold, so everyone's got a bit of privacy, but they kind of don't to you. And there's a certain amount of, I don't want to be looking in those directions, but not that I'm looking, but I can't stop it. And
I suppose he's got the acute sense hearing as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose he can do that thing where he prays and almost goes into that meditative state that kind of shuts it all off. So I suspect he'll be doing quite a lot of that.
Sleep, meditation, and staying up above board helps.
Yeah.
But yes, our acute sense trait has had a slight tweak, which is worth bringing up, in that it now says that you can hear stuff that others of your species cannot hear. It allows for each of the species' differences to be hard-coded without saying, the elves require acute sense to have elven hearing. They don't. They just have elven hearing.
Nice.
You hear stuff that humans don't within your own particular part, and it's unavoidable. And the same is for the people out there. But you see things that others don't. You are more aware of those that are directly related to Sigmar. Sigmar's people. It means that, for example, our criminal elements, those who have long abandoned that sort of thing, are a bit duller to his vision. They're still there, but they're a bit duller. Our Altdorf soldiers are very clear as they're marching through. Who are they? That's the Altdorf soldiers. Pinned. Got it. And Altdorf. And Altdorf. Holy crap. The pennants that are hanging down. He can see them. He knows what they're about. He can not see the walls.
But he can see the thing hanging on it. Yeah.
Okay, he's not aware of the walls at all, but he knows they're there.
Maybe it's not performative. Maybe this was all destined, and maybe it was to help him navigate his way around the streets.
It must be. It's all for him. But as you go closer, you can begin to hear the walls, the echoes coming off them, as it begins to make much more sense within his new internal framework of how he perceives the world. People from other places, let's use the obvious option, Yumi. Much duller. Can barely see her in comparison to the rest because they're so far removed from your individual realm.
Is it that? Is it Renald? Is it something else? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, exactly. Harder to see. Those who are blessed, to him, shine to a degree, but possibly there's those that he won't see. He doesn't know yet. And the word see is an easy way to drop it in. I think it's the language we'll use because we're replacing one sight with another sight, so to speak. But it's fair to say, so for anyone out there trying to imagine it, he does not see a thing. It's much more awareness, a sensation rather than a sight, and an awareness of distance rather than you see it that far away. That's so far away. And sometimes I imagine there's going to be the almost the hand to locate it. It's that way.
Well, that's why he got the quarterstaff, was so that he's got something to lean on, something to tap the ground with, something to occasionally just feel out like the door frames around there it is, and just to.
Beyond that, though,
also to not freak people out.
It does help. He has a tight bubble around him of where his awareness is almost acute, far beyond the sight of others. He's aware of behind him in a way that others aren't. You can't charge him from behind without him being aware of it, because it's the same as someone charging you from the front. He's as aware. He has not got tunnel vision. He doesn't go to a single point like humans do, where they focus in on a point. It's just everything all at once. A little bit like a movie. But no, in fact, I'm going to change that. A little bit like a video game where they haven't got depth of field in. Where it's just all there.
Yeah.
And then he has to concentrate for a moment for distance. Because he doesn't have that depth perception thing in the same way that everybody else does. It's just a little bit of, and to begin with, obviously deeply disconcerting.
Yeah.
But the whine of being deaf is gone.
Ooh.
And it's very odd coming back to a city that he can visualize within his mind, unlike you with your aphantasia, and then overlace with this completely new, different perception. There's a part of him that just wants to wander around and see what it feels like. He's not had much freedom of late either.
And he probably will just I think stretch his legs, but also test the senses, but also breathe in the familiar sense, and and
Day one, have a wander.
Yeah.
So there's generally a few reactions that are common. One, people avoid him much more. Much more. When they bump into him, they're immediately apologetic. Every single time. And it's not just because he's a priest, it's because he's blind. Bumping into him is a bit harder because he's got a stick out in front of him and people notice it. People often offer him help. Do you need help across the road? Are you going somewhere in particular? Some are a bit rude. Little boys over there throwing stuff. You can do the old catch.
Yeah. I'm a very good priest.
Shit! Boys, run. Yeah, nice one. It's a classic. It'd open any movie scene. Yeah. And Ubersreik, its tone hasn't changed. It feels much the same as it did before, at least for the first half hour or so. Then you catch your first fist fight, and the reasoning behind it is different to what it would have been before. There was always brawls and issues. The watch had to come in and deal with stuff. Ubersreik's big enough that it requires a full-time watch on patrol. In fact, it's more than big enough. It's a pretty big place. And beforehand, it would have been all manner of different things that cause conflict. Within his first couple of hours of wandering, picking himself up a little bit of food, meandering, pretty much every fight has fallen down into one side and the other not being happy. It's focused the contentions that everybody has around. And it's often targeting outsiders or outsiders targeting in. It leaves the Docklands, which are mostly outsiders, a much more dangerous place than it used to be, where anyone who's not an Ubersreiker has almost been lumped in with the invaders, the occupiers, those who have come in. Deeply unfair. Massively unfair, because they're not. They're just trying to earn their living. But you can sense and feel the conflicts that are arising from the simplest stuff. Those people there are taking up a seat. Fuck off, this is for Ubersreikers. Get the fuck out. Tensions everywhere. And they're not all, obviously, Altdorf versus Ubersreik. They're all often covered by other things, but at their heart,
that's where the pressure is
central contention.
Yeah.
And everybody here, particularly the locals, are just looking to release their pressure. And there's no real way to do it. The place is locked up pretty tight. So that's what he is offered. A nice easy morning, getting to grips with what used to be his hometown. Now, he grew up, when he was younger, off in an orphanage. And then much later, he was taken in as an oblati of the Temple of Sigmar. And then from there, he was picked up and taught almost exclusively by Habercorn. Largely because he was plucked free by the young Freuds, because he was relatively close in age to both the boys. He played with both of them when they were young, and then the elder was plucked free again because he had important matters of state to attend to. After all, he was going to be the future Duke. Yeah. And once he passed the age of 10, he was gone. He's about the same age as you.
Yeah.
And he, in many respects, was probably the one that you were lined up to be friendly with. You were seen to be potentially a useful person to have around because you've been taught in Sigmarite ways pretty much since day one, even though you yourself did not necessarily follow them. You were, after all, an orphan.
Indeed.
And to say that you got up to scrapes would be a little bit of an underestimation as to his slightly more dodgy background than he might like to admit with his grown-up version of himself.
I'm a very good priest.
A very, very, very good priest. Something that Habercorn not only recognised, in many respects, reflected. It was one of the reasons that she was given him, because he was a pain in the arse. And
he still is.
And she could control him, because she came from a very similar background. As in somebody who was not what you'd naturally expect to be a Sigmarite, came from the wrong side of town, and then came to her faith at a later point. And chose to, let's say, represent Sigmar to others. So a natural fit there. She was, however, harsh. And a lot of your childhood was being on the receiving end of some rather harsh whippings, tellings off.
I mean, there's a reason toughness is the stat I spent most XP on, right? You
know? Whippings and telling off. Nevertheless, they subsided as you grew older, and you grew far more canny.
And far more charming.
And far more charming. And as you became more Gerhardt's friend than his, and there was more than one time you'd creep off with Gerhardt to do a particularly foolish thing. And this was picked up by the father, who later on, in many respects, used you as a vehicle to ensure that the foolish things that were done were channeled. Mm-hmm. A classic, yeah, he's going to go out and do the stuff, so I'd rather that there was someone relatively responsible there. And it almost changed, in some respects, your character, because you were then put in a position of responsibility. Mm-hmm. Damn it.
Damn
it. Damn it. And as we know, Sigmar then later took over as Gerhardt went in a very different direction to yourself. Until, of course, you met back. Definitely weren't a Sigmarite priesty figure for him then. That's the morning loosely done. What does he plan to do? Now he's back in Ubersreik, and he's aware of the city in a way that others aren't. Is there anything he would like to do? Any particular thing he would like to sample? Any particular place he would like to visit?
Well, no, I mean, obviously his gut instinct would be to go to the Temple of Sigmar, but that also might not be a great idea.
Potentially announces that he's there.
Yeah, exactly. And, and might then force the High Priest to have to acknowledge that he was there, and that's
all true.
He is very, obviously, this whole augury and oracular ability that he has got now, he's wrestling a bit with that and what that means. And he doesn't have a mentor, and he doesn't have and he was obviously trying to find out about it and asked what he thought was a blessed priestess of Verena that turned out to be a horrible shape-shifting demon instead. So he's taking that piece of advice with a pinch of salt, which was to go see, I forget the name of it, but some sisterhood in Null.
Indeed.
And it makes him very suspicious about that sisterhood, and he's like, I think if we're ever in Null, I'm going to investigate what the hell they're all about. But he is a little bit bereft, because he's like, well, he knows a lot about Sigmar. His lore theology is reasonably high, He's not really aware. He knows that they exist. He met some. Wishes he'd asked some more pointed questions back then than now. So that's what he's curious about. But he knows, even without going, he knows that the Temple of Sigmar probably wouldn't be able to help him with that, because he spent a lot of time in that temple and there's nothing about it there. So that leaves him kind of with two choices. One would be the Temple of Verena, just looking in terms of knowledge. And the other would be to inquire after Habercorn and whether she still is there. That being said, if Altdorf have taken Black Rock, he might not be able to just walk in through the gates. Maybe he will, because he's Sigmarite. So he might be okay. If not,
a lot of respect for Sigmarites from the old.
He does have another way in, and he can sneak in through the tunnels. But I think let's not play that card unless we have to.
I think that's fair. So, in his misspent youth, he and Gerhardt snuck out of Black Rock more times than they would like to ever admit.
What if the Altdorfers know about the tunnels and put a guard there? That might be more suspicious. So I think he'll at least initially try the open approach. And then,
absolutely makes sense. So, come the afternoon, having lunched, watered, he taps his way up towards the main gates that lead into Black Rock. They are tall. These walls, even these ones, in fact, interesting. Now you're closer to them, you think some parts of them might be higher. Have they extended them? In this little time, it's only been 3 months. You're not quite sure what's going on there.
I mean, it's also possible the Graph extended them in the last 5 years.
It's been 5 years, hasn't it? Yeah, good point. The obvious option. Although the internal one seems an odd one to increase. He can sense the banners to either side of him. And with a little bit of a raise, they're hanging close and all the way down the walls as he feels that. Oh, there's a lot of them.
It's more red and blue rock than Black Rock now.
Yeah, and the high slums that leant heavily against the walls down there, there's gapping down there now. You can hear the echoes moving between. So they've clearly started pushing back at the buildings. And with a little bit of a tilt of his head, he can hear the stakes that have been pushed into place, being dropped down to push the buildings back.
So that's more than just performative. They're expecting a siege. they're expecting an attack.
They're preparing for something. That much is certain. You're a little surprised they didn't just burn down the slum. That being the case, though, you've been by those slums. There's hundreds, if not thousands, in there, uncounted.
Yeah.
They're just people chock-a-block living in beside. You know personally, because you were involved with one of the censuses that was taken by the cult of Sigmar on behalf of the cult of Brina, because they were part of it, and you sadly had to troop around as an oblate, wandering about going, how many people live in this house? There's 4 of those. How many people live in it? We need the names for them. This is so boring. He's so boring. Let's run! He was involved with it. The official census only places the population at about 5 to 10,000, depending upon which number you believe. But you know that one of the rookeries alone at the site had a population of several thousand. And that was just a guess, obviously. Yeah. But you know the numbers are absolutely nonsense. They're made up purely for tax reasons to try and suggest that there's fewer, so that the tax load out
Plus,
is
none
lower.
of those people are paying taxes.
And that's also fair. Yeah. But they are all buying.
Yeah.
And purchasing and doing things within town. And that is where a lot of the tax load comes from. Now, the taxes that go to the Jungfreuds, or at least went to the Jungfreuds, not necessarily match the ones that then went up to the von Walfens, the Walfen family, House Walfen, who were working off of more official tax numbers. Not uncommon when you're in a tiered feudal system of this sort of ilk.
Everybody's skimming a little bit. Right? Everyone's on the take. Everyone's on the take.
It's fair to say that good old Sigismund was rather good at his job. And by that I mean he managed to get a lot of money out of his land. But that's different. That suggests a nervousness, or a fear, or something. So there might be more bubbling under here that is immediately obvious. And it also suggests an internal war. This isn't the outside walls, which may be being reinforced in a way that he's not noticed as well. This is the internal ones. They're expecting possibly Ubersreik to rise, which is fascinating. The gate itself, though, has Altdorfers to either side. They're strongly Sigmarite. And you can almost immediately feel their hesitation, their reverence, and their fear. Because that's what often comes hand in hand with your cult.
Fair.
Particularly when someone's stepping forward looking like they might be relatively martial. What is going to be asked of them? It's the first question that any guard on this sort of place is, am I going to have to say no to something? Uh-oh. And you can feel it within them. So you're at the gate, and it is open. You could just stride through, or you could ask politely to either side.
Well, I don't want to tip my hand that I'm aware of them. I'm blind as far as they're concerned, so I think I'll keep going and wait for one of them to announce their presence. You know?
There is a pause. You can see them. You can almost feel one looking at the other. One of them goes, "Yeah, father." He says, "Not to be disrespectful nor nothing, but are you here for a reason?"
I'm hoping to visit with Sister Habercorn in the Chapel of St. Arnold.
The one on the other side goes, "Now the Chapel of St. Arnold, that's the chapel at the back." He goes, well, how about we escort you over, father?
That would be much appreciated.
So you get yourself a little soldier escort to take you all the way in. Black Rock Castle is not... He's unsure. He's been here a lot, but he thinks that this was potentially originally where whatever was the proto-Ubersreik was built. Because, unlike the rest of Ubersreik, much of which is muddy and broken and cobbled up, there's quite a lot of bare rock in places, even now here. Perhaps this was once, ages ago, a quarry that's been flattened down, and there was once more here. Perhaps it was something else entirely, but it does provide a very solid foundation for the enormous quantity of black rock that has been piled up to make the many towers, columns, castles, walkways, and everything that lies in between. Bastions, palace, even. And he can feel it. The rock feels different to him, to the ground. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
First time noticing it.
Yeah, and like, obviously, like for people from Ubersreik, and he was born there, and so I probably drank a lot of the Ubersreik Kool-Aid. Like, they believe that this is where Sigmar was born, not Altdorf, Ubersreik.
Yeah.
So probably now, thinking that this is the progenesis of Ubersreik, that probably means Sigmar was born like somewhere right around here. So I think he's probably going to be very alert to it. Not that I'm expecting some moment, but he'll be kind of alert to that, to like feeling like this very ground is the start of everything. It is the heart of it all, in a way that he probably didn't appreciate when he was younger.
And his heart sinks. There's one thing that he has realized is the concept of coincidence and repetition and cycles. He's been feeling it again and again. And the fact that the start of the Empire is also potentially the start. Yeah, his heart, it can't help but sink like it was planned. It wasn't Ubersreik, the young Freuds were chosen for no other reason than it was here.
Fuck.
Now that doesn't mean that the individual is responsible of any awareness of that.
No,
but it does suggest that there is something behind it that might. And you saw something. No other way of putting it. You clearly saw that bulging eye bursting forth out of the warehouse floor where they were attempting to summon something. And it was looking around, ringed with multicolored, and you could almost see that. That wasn't just a sense, see. And it's burned into the back of your mind, that horrific reality. Because it dropped into nothing. Who knows, maybe the realm of the gods itself lay down there. And it burst into and pushed against reality itself and was confined. Like reality itself could not be transgressed with ease. And it bulged up against it. And he heard, sensed, felt all those voices. There is intelligence behind it all. No matter how much you might try to not think about the intelligence that's behind it all. There is. And this feels like another little step along understanding that path. Ubersreik is not random. None of it is. Everything is working to a design. If he accepts Alamenawi's view, that design is now so firmly in place that the future is almost locked. The end is coming one way or another. She is a doomsayer of doomsayers. But she's convinced the end is coming and that the great prophecies that have been spouted are old, very old. Some of them spilled centuries ago. And all the work that needed to be done to ensure that's come to pass is now largely done. It doesn't actually matter how events fall out anymore because they all go towards the same end. She's hoping that's not true through whatever crazy elven route that she's taking. And I think it's fair to say that he's hoping that's not true too.
Fair.
But how to fight against something so potentially enormous in terms of the intellect working behind it and seeing the link slowly forming. How? Escorted along by the soldier as his mind is racing through it all. And with one footstep, his entire self changes. He's just making his way along, turning round the corner, setting himself off, heading towards where he knows the chapel is, just up over there. Round the corner, and with a single footstep, it's almost like stepping on a pool of light. And it spills out in all directions. Spreads like a wave. And it keeps going until it's beyond his sensation. He had no idea what's happened. But he definitely senses that.
And is it like a
stop?
Bing?
Yeah. He doesn't hear it.
Yeah, I mean, he'll like pause for a second.
He stops, he says, and they go, it's all right, Father. It's all open ahead of us.
And then he'll carry on, but yeah.
No, nothing else.
Interesting. And the rest of there's no enduring change. Like, he hasn't suddenly entered holy ground or anything like that.
Nope.
How bizarre.
Nope.
Actually
quite confusing.
Yeah, totally.
Pad. A mere 3 minutes later.
I mean, a little part of him will be like, I hope that's not because I had that realization. I hope I haven't woken something up to my... Because we're not meant to think about it, right? Is that not what Aluminum said? Oh, no. Oh, no.
How can I stop myself thinking?
Exactly. You can't. And how can we fight a thing
Weird root. I need more weird root.
That's what I mean.
Pad. And within 3 minutes, you can feel the familiar shape of the small chapel. It's not large. You know that it has a single nave, a small hammerhead at the back where the offices of Habercorn are. You sat in there being lectured at, being whipped across the back of the feet sometimes. Oh, because then it hurt when you walked. She even told you she was doing it on purpose just so that you couldn't forget the lesson. And the worst part was that she didn't even do it as hard. If she'd done it as hard, you could have gone, oh, I can't walk. No. As he gets you over to it, he says, there's 2 steps just up here, Father. He says, will I knock on the door for you?
Thank you, that'd be appreciated.
Bam, 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 bam. On the outside, above it, you can sense... You can sense the Arnold. It's so much clearer than everything else around it. And off to either side as well, statues. That's Arnold. You never knew that before. Oh. That's a different saint.
Who's that then?
That's Arnold. Who's that? The things you learn that you never expected to learn inside. As there's no answer. Not a surprise. Habercorn is off probably doing Habercorn business and pays no attention really to the chapel. People just come in and out as and when they're required. He says, oh, there don't appear to be no one answering, Father.
Well, you can leave me here and I'll go inside and pray and wait for the sister to return.
I'll open the door for you.
Thank you.
As is always the case with temples, shrines, or indeed any larger building to Sigmar, no pews. That is not how Sigmar does it. You can stand in your own 2 feet, gods damn it. A long empty space and a variety of statues to either side. Stained glass windows, supposedly, you're not so convinced now, supposedly, actually not depicting the life of Arnold.
Do they pick a life of a different saint?
Yes.
Or I wonder if it's the saint who's the other statue.
Oh, you're a little confused now as you step over the threshold and a familiar thrum runs through you. A ting, ting of a hammer on an anvil just rings for a moment and then pulls off. You've been debating with yourself about that one because it suggests much more artifice than anything he's ever been taught. But he's hearing it again as he passes over.
Like it suggests not a warhammer, but a smithing hammer.
Something that's forging something, building.
But that's sort of how he views the Empire. Like he's forging the Empire. So maybe that's what it is. But
who can say? As you pass over and he's like, yeah, are you all right? It's warmer in here, which means there's obviously some candles lit somewhere. Maybe some torch. You're not quite sure where it is. It's burning in that direction. You can hear the flicker. And another one there. Another one up there. And there. You're still getting used to this. It's enough to make your eyes itch, though. He goes, well, I'll close the door.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Click. Leaving you an environment that used to be very familiar and now is alien and strange, yet also very familiar. You have prayed here more times than you can possibly count. You know the exact dimensions of the place, and now arguably better as you come in. But what you can say for certain is, it's not a chapel to St. Arnold. At some point, someone's changed its name. St. Arnold's on the outside guarding it.
Interesting.
Everything in here has nothing to do with that statue. It has a different resonance. Everything resounds with the other statue at the front. And you almost go back out. Yep. Definitely nothing to do with him. Something is different here. Ah. I'm off to the side, just round the edge of the claw. You can feel something off.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
Scarper over it, that one. Clack, clack, tack, tack, tack. Around the corner. All right, you understand why it's off. It's the goblin. There's a small goblin statue that sits down at the side.
That word statue is quite important there, Andy.
It really is. Small goblin statue. No one understood what it was there for. It was just a small goblin, big nose, sitting out there. It's got a chain around its neck. That's worn away. You know it's got a chain around its neck. Oh, you really got a lot to get used to.
Yeah.
As suddenly, like a lightning flash, it slashes through you. A goblin moving and then getting yanked by its neck backwards. And that's it. The briefest of visions.
Ooh.
That's a thing. No, you'd think it might have had something like a jester's hat on. Now you're confused.
Yeah.
So, other than that, any plans?
No, I think, just walk around the chapel, just reacquaint himself with it, try to get some sense, if he can, of who this original saint was, if not a name, then a character.
Quite.
But
it's a good hour's worth of wandering, contemplation, hoping for extra visions, touching things. Will that help? He's in an experimental phase.
Exactly.
He just doesn't know.
Yeah.
Touch, hear, run your fingers along things, feel the stone. There is no doubt in his mind that this place is holy. It's holy. But there is something just not what he thought it was, and he can't quite pin it down. Sometime before the doors at the back open, and he hears the soft footsteps of someone come in.
Does he have any sense of who
The
they are?
likelihood of that being Habercorn is about 1,000,000 to 1, they said.
Unless she's changed dramatically. Yeah.
She is not a light-footed woman in the slightest. The fact that you haven't...
Except when she's surprising you late at night when you've been out later than you should have been. Then suddenly she's incredibly stealthy.
In fact, the fact you haven't heard her coming, him coming, it coming, up until this point, immediately puts you on the half defensive. Because it came as a surprise that the door opened. There was no sound. You can hear in the distance movements are all around. But that one you didn't. Not until it entered. Turn round. The walls here block your vision. Your sight.
Because
you have to go around it because they're so palpable.
Well, they might not know I'm here.
Yeah, they might not.
I might just pause for a moment.
Pause.
Bear with me.
Yeah. Pad, 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 pad. Stop. The door clicks by itself at the back. It's on a spring. That's new. And there's a pause. Do you think they've stopped around about halfway up the nave? They move again. Over towards one of the windows. Then they move again. Over towards the other side. Then move back towards the door. Open it up. And click, they're gone. How mysterious.
Interesting. I mean, it might be nothing more than an initiate coming in and cleaning, maybe relighting the candles, possibly.
Possibly.
Is that roughly where I could feel candles burning?
No.
No.
No. I mean, it was good. Polishing a statue's nose. Who can say for certain? But you heard no obvious sounds other than the figure walking around and then leaving, so there was no rustles of material or anything similar. It was just beyond what is required for the movements. And even those were slightly dull.
Probably you, me.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yumi's passed through. Yeah. You're just catching up with what she's doing. Another half hour later, after the mystery of the initial visitor, you hear the arrival of another long before they make their way in, almost a full minute. Footsteps, and they're clearly coming this direction. They're getting louder and louder and louder until eventually they arrive. As they're making their way over, you begin to hear the voices from the surrounding hubbub rising up. A voice going, no, don't be ridiculous. And another voice going, well, you know, sir, we could... No, I won't be having it. I will be having none of that. We'll be having none of this at all. I have no time or inclination to be dealing with it. And do we really have to even do the party? And the other voice going, well, you know, sir, we really should, and we have been requested. Oh, bloody God! No, I have no interest in that or indeed any of this. There's important business that has to be done. Bangs open the chapel. And he says, go on, piss off. I've got to pray. As he goes, right, really, of course, sir. And he says, no. Bangs the door shut behind him. What a bloody mess. You hear and now smell.
If he's come to pray, me secretly hiding round the corner of the claw is probably bad form, right? Like, that's probably not. What I should do is ask him if he wants privacy, I guess, is probably the right thing to do. Or if I can be of any assistance, because I am a priest in a temple. Yeah, so I guess I'll do that. Kind of tap my way around.
Sigma's ghost! He says, who the bloody hell are you? He says, oh, pardon me, father. He says, oh, you're blind? Right, of course. Ah, hello.
Greetings.
I didn't know that there'd be anyone here.
I'm here to visit the sister. If you would like privacy, I can take myself through to the chambers in the back. Or if I can be of any service to you, I'm happy to do so.
No, I'll be fine. He says, just, He says, no, I'll be fine. As you can feel his hands clenching together as he lowers his head and is guilted into doing some praying. By your very presence. So much for his fly smoke. By himself.
Well, you know what? There's nothing in the strictures about not smoking.
No, there's not.
It's perfectly appropriate to continue to smoke while you pray.
No. He says,
well, to make him feel a bit better, Luitpold will fetch his own pipe out and we'll... Yeah.
You hear that? And then he calls out, so where are you from?
Originally, I'm from here, actually. I trained under Sister Habercorn. It's why I've come back to see her as I was passing through.
He says, belligerent old battle axe, that one.
Yeah.
Says, we tried to get rid of her. He says, I didn't. Representatives from the capital, they came in and she actually challenged one of them to a duel. An actual duel. Like she was bloody Oracular. I was quite enamoured by it. I asked to watch. They backed out. So that was that. They left her to it. She's still here somewhere. She tends to do her. She's off in the garden. You checked the garden yet?
I haven't, no.
Huh. She's tending a garden.
That's not like her.
That's really not like her.
Yeah.
Tending a garden? What's changed? Yeah. 5 years has changed everything. He says, you might want to check out there if you wish. She's often there, mostly avoiding speaking to anyone. Or they're avoiding speaking to her, one or the other.
Where is this garden? Is it near to the chapel?
It's at the back of the chapel, about 20 paces, 25 paces, newly fenced off section. So where'd you stay from? Here?
Originally, yeah.
What's your name?
Luitpold.
He says, Dabernick.
Right, you are.
A name you have heard.
Yeah.
He says, I use the chapel as a place to contemplate all the successes we've had. Well, I pretty much characterize it as no water. Yeah. Nothing but success.
It'll all be fine.
He says, if you want to find her, you'll probably find her out there.
I'll do that and leave you to your prayers.
Oh, right. You'll be able to make it, though. I can get a soldier to guide you over with one.
I think I'll be fine. I've got my stick.
All right. There you are. What happened to your eyes? He says as you pass, as you're making your way to the door.
It would take too long to explain, my lord.
Oh. He sees you passing by. I see. Very interesting. Actually, before you go,
Damn it.
he says, this one. And he points forward at an image of what you had previously thought was St. Arnold. His hands up like so, smacking down towards an unspecified something. Clearly given enough detail to be obviously bad guy, but not enough detail to be, we shouldn't be depicting that. Yeah. The morass of something at the bottom and holding up. Now, this one always interested you because it looked like the saint was wielding a spear, which was interesting theologically. Mm-hmm. The spear more commonly associated with, for example, Myrmidia. Mm-hmm. And the stained glass window here is, in terms of the greater age of the chapel, quite new. All of them are relatively new, probably looking at a few hundred years old at most. No one's quite sure how old, but everyone presumes maybe, I mean, there was a, Habercorn suggested they may even be less than 100 years old because many of them were smashed when the greenskins passed through and everybody hid underneath the city. But there it is, with a spear. I mean, this one. He says, the last temple of Sigmar I was in, where they had a spear, he says, was for this saint, I think her name was Helga. She took many great victories against the Bretonnians, so of course she was sanctified because bloody right she should be. But this fellow outside, he's got a big hammer. What's this? You've literally no idea.
I mean,
You've asked?
Do I know St. Helga?
Oh, good call. Have you got Lord Theology?
I do.
Yes, you do, so give that one a quick one.
Because we're out of combat.
Yes, we are. Do you have advantages now? And especially given your surroundings.
It's +6 critical then.
Whoa! Roll again so I can get the number of successes. Sweet.
No extra successes.
Okay, so critical. Good. Then I will give you this. Helga, the second Paravanese war with Ubersreik. Helga was a priestess, a local one, that was blessed on the battlefield. She had been sent back by her, by the Order of the Silver Hammer, in fact, and told not to come to the battlefield because, and I quote from the story that you read, you're a woman.
Sigmarites be Sigmarite.
So she snuck in regardless, and on the battlefield was blessed with a blazing pillar of light in the middle of it all. And struck with a hammer, not a spear.
Interesting.
And struck a knight on full charge, obliterating it, and the hammer.
Wow.
So she picked up what remains of the lance and then just calling everyone forward who were half in a state of retreat, she charged. And they all fell in behind her. She died in that battle, as is often the case for battlefield saints.
Yeah.
And it's not a spear for Helga. Chap's wrong.
Yeah.
It's a lance.
Yeah.
And the remains of a lance at that. It's not even the full thing.
And this definitely isn't her.
Nope, that's an actual spear. You can see it. It's thin.
And it's a man, is it, rather than a woman, or is it?
Upon reflection, you're happy to admit you're not going to take that call. But when you were young, everyone said it was a man.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure of the story being depicted in that image.
Damn it.
It's definitely not Helga. It was a lance that she wielded when she was sainted.
A lance?
Yeah.
Ha!
That's, from what I remember from my childhood here, that it's depicted as a spear, and I'll gesture vaguely in the direction of the window, even though I know exactly where it is. That was a more accurately rendered spear than a lance that was picked up on the field of battle.
And that's when you recall it. House Dabernink, Helga. It's his house. She came from his house.
Ah, interesting.
Great.
Nice.
As you're like, and wait a minute, you said you'd never would have put that together. I mean, it's just an obscure piece of lore at the back of your head.
Yeah. I'll maybe not share that I've worked that out just in case.
He's well, I suppose, useful as it can be. Do pass on my best regards.
I shall. My thanks.
You tap your way around. This is in and of itself interesting. She's not here. The earth. There's no plants, suggesting it's been recently seeded. That's interesting. Why she want a garden? But she's not here. Damn it. The insides of the walls are the same. You can feel the banners. They're everywhere.
What, they're hanging them on the inside as well?
Yeah. How much material have they used?
I know. I mean, just the logistics of it.
How much money have they spent on this? Have they taken it from elsewhere? The pennants just hanging down. Each one coming from the... You're beginning to almost doubt your senses. Are you seeing something else? Is your assumption incorrect?
Am I seeing symbolic banners here?
That might be it. That both worries and interests you at the same time, because it makes you doubt your senses. Perhaps you're going to see things that others can't because they're not there. There might be none hanging up. There might be lots. But in your mind's eye, they are everywhere. And then a pong as you step back away as you're looking at it. Comes out from your heel as it hits the ground.
Like it did.
Just like it did on the way in. And an almost golden ping sends outwards in a cresting, sensed wave. And just backs off.
Entirely circular.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what it feels to you.
If I step
buildings with equal ease.
Forward and then back again?
Nope, nothing.
What is going on? I think the time might have come to actually go in and pray, I think.
You go back. Dabernink is still in there. He's looking at exactly the same one he was looking at before. As he turns around and looks and goes, Sister, Father.
She wasn't there, unfortunately.
She might be at the pub.
She could be.
Having lunch. She likes to have herself one of those big... I had lunch with her once. A pie of some sort. Local thing. It wasn't to my taste. Ah, yes. Yes, her mutton pies. Her mutton pies. I'm pretty sure that no one else in this city would ever eat one of those horrendous things. They're gristly, they're horrible, but they're made to her preference.
So dry.
Yeah.
He just wants a dry pie.
It's like chewing dust. As he looks at it. It does look like spear though, doesn't it?
From what I remember, yes, it did.
So, you're going to go off and pray?
Yeah.
He contemplates and mulls as he smokes. And a knock comes at the door from behind as you're about 10 minutes into your pray test. Pray. Superb. Successes?
1. 2, because of my talent.
Excellent. I'll resolve admirable. As the door knocks and... Sir, comes a voice from the outside. I apologise to interrupt. I understand you're at your... and then he looks down and sees you, and his voice lowers significantly. Oh, I didn't realise you had company. As he comes in, and he says much more quietly.
But not quietly enough.
Not quietly enough. Thank you, Saint Hearing. Sir, we really need to get you fitted out. He says, no, I refuse. He says, not quietly. I refuse to wear any sort of costume. I refuse to wear any sort of local silliness. If I'm going to be attending to this thing, I'll be attending as I am. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Fully understand, sir. Should I? I don't care what you do. Go on, piss off, I'm having my smoke. Yes, sir. Apologies, he says a bit more loudly, and then backs out.
Just act like I heard nothing.
Pray.
Soul of discretion.
You pray. Actually, worth a remind, you could oracular your boy here if you wanted.
Ooh.
You've got the talent after all.
Let's do it.
Intuition!
Let's do it.
Because we often forget this one.
Yeah.
So good to bring it up.
Yeah.
Number of successes?
5 successes.
As
No, 6 successes because the talent gives me +1.
Yeah. As you don't even need to do the turnaround because it's not a turnaround. That's not how your senses work. They just work. Doesn't actually matter where your head turning for this. It does for your hearing a lot, which is often where he's turning his head to.
Yeah.
When people are talking, getting the best view of where they are, that's when he shifts his head. But not this. As he's sitting there and he's praying, there's a flash from behind. A flash of what? It's easy to use sight as a metaphor for how it is. It's like a flash of light, but it's not light, is what you said. But it's coming from him, and it's enough for you to almost shift to try and reposition your senses because you don't quite understand how these senses work. Often they're working through your hands more than anything else because it sort of concentrates your sense. It's almost like you're putting your hand out and concentrating, and that helps. And you almost instinctually put your hand up and across your chest to feel it. And it's different. For the last several years, almost every single vision that he has seen has involved someone dying in absolute agony. However, since that synod, that meeting of all of the priests when you were back in Altdorf, if anything, his oracular vision has almost slipped, gone. He hasn't really thought too much about it because it's fake. It was fake. It was all lies. Yeah. But now he's here, and for the first time, something quite different.
Or it was true, but being used to manipulate.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
It was nothing more than a reinforcement of a preferred end. Absolutely. But this is different. Very different. Him having a conversation with a woman. It's an actual conversation. It's difficult to sense who the woman is, but you can hear her voice. And her voice is quite clear. My general, I have the absolute support of the Emperor in all of my decisions. You have the orders of the Emperor. Make of that what you will. And him saying, No, absolutely not. I think you'll find I'm the one that's going to be doing nothing in this particular instance. You have orders. Follow them through. Well, I think you'll find that we're going to hunt these young froys down to the last man, he says. Her reply is, You have no such orders. I have whatever orders I want to have, he replies. You have no such orders. What do you know of my orders anyway? I penned them, she says. What? What? No, my orders came directly from the Reichsmarshal. And who do you think gave him his orders? No, I don't believe it. Then just ask. I'm sure the Reichsmarshal will make it clear exactly what your orders are. You will leave Black Rock alone. Now hurry up! What do you know? And then a second vision, right by it. There's nothing wrong with accidents, he says. She likes to walk the battlements.
Was that him?
Yep. His voice low. And I reply, are you absolutely certain, sir? Says, that might not go down very well. There are many dissidents in this town. We should know. Says, we're in most of them. Says, just push the bitch off. Done with her. I have no interest at all in her yabba. Speaking on behalf of the Emperor, indeed. She's probably never even met him. And it drifts away. Is that in the future? Has that passed?
Oh, that's not good.
Which is it?
Yeah.
As right, as he makes his way out, back to business. As he turns around and he calls out much louder. You didn't even realise he was speaking low until he spoke at his normal volume, and it's so much louder as he calls over. Very good to meet you, Father. He calls.
It'll affect the start as if he's been woken out of a reverie. Likewise, my lord.
He says, Sigma, watch your footsteps.
And yours. Come and Sigma's right.
Closes the door. Bloody tall bugger, he says on the outside, and you hear from somebody who's partly just been sitting out there the entire time. Yes, he is, isn't he? An elven voice, accented. You hadn't heard any elf moving around out there.
What the what?
He says, you and I need to have a talk. I've had a revelation.
Oh no.
He says, as the other voice says, what sort of revelation, my lord? Because if I were you, I'd be pressing a little bit harder. And then him saying, well, that's exactly my point. We're being stymied in it by this woman over in the bloody palace. I've just had a thought, he says. So you and me, we should have a looser discussion as they fade off into the distance.
Fuck.
Everywhere there's politics. Everywhere things are happening. Well, gosh.
Gosh, I mean, I'm assuming that Luitpold might know enough to guess who that woman probably is, because we had a wider talk about the political situation in Ubersreik, and the names of two significant people were mentioned. He was one of them.
It's a nice way of confirming that potential.
Is that fair? I mean, I don't know for sure that was her, but my assumption is that it was Lady Nacht.
I think that is a fair assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly given that she's popped up in conversation multiple times. Yeah. You know that she's in the area. Yumi's mentioned her multiple times as well.
And we'd heard specifically that the two of them were leading the Altdorf delegation.
Yes, indeed. He was in command and she was there watching.
Yeah. Except apparently she was actually in command.
Apparently it might be the other way around. And he doesn't like it.
I mean, should I go and find her? Warn her. She's not going to see a random blind warrior priest, is she? Maybe she will. Maybe she'd be curious. What the fuck? A blind warrior priest wants to speak to me? Sure.
Random blind warrior priest? That's very harsh.
Yeah,
blind warrior priest.
He's no Elric, so he's not.
Random blind warrior priest wanders up from the street and says, "I have visions. I need to talk to you." Oh man, you've turned into a stereotype.
I really have.
You really have. You're a
beware the Ides of March.
What's he gonna do?
Right, he's got etiquette noble. He's not an idiot.
No, he's not.
How does he secure, in a relatively quiet way, how does he secure an audience with someone like that?
Okay, so I'll leave it in its simplest part because it's obviously not, say, schemer. In the very simplest, the easiest way is to just ask.
Yeah.
He is a man of potential rank and also a man of potential military rank because he comes from a warrior priest order. He doesn't hold a particularly high rank and it vacillates and is different according to the different state armies, the different colonels, how they appreciate the cult of Sigmar and how much they impact. But as a priest, he's often given a rank of anything from sergeant up to captain. high priest would have captain.
Yeah. Or a priest captain.
Yeah, exactly. Priest captain in particular. But often minimums of the sergeant area.
Yeah.
So there's also a certain level of military access that could potentially come from this. But she's not a military figure. If anything, she's the opposite.
But the military are running this place.
Yes, they are.
And leadership is one of his very best skills.
Can't go wrong with a bit of the old leadership, can you?
I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to go and try and find himself a soldier.
Can't go wrong with the old soldier.
Well, I mean, you can. You very much can go wrong.
There's, fortunately, not that many. And I say fortunately because it makes it very easy to pick one.
Yeah.
The castle, all of Black Rock, can actually host thousands.
Yeah.
It is enormous. It has empty stables going on into nothingness. It has barrack halls sitting up against the high walls that are often empty, and presumably the outdoor soldiers have just shifted into here. But the most of them are out, touring around, going about the countryside, doing one thing or another, moving around the city of Ubersreik. A small, arguably nominal number are here. Most of them are up in the walls. There's obviously going to be some in shifts, some who are sleeping presumably in some of the barracks, but they're not out and about. So the place is almost deserted. There's a few guards here and there. Most of the guards are on the main gates into this place. The Grauer Palace, over off towards the side, it's got a bunch of soldiers in front of it. The main Black Rock itself, with its big open doors, which are flung open. The black and white marble on the inside can be seen clearly. There's just two soldiers sitting out there. A host by that gate, a host by that gate leading out, a host by that gate down into the precinct as well. You can feel them, even though those ones are on the other side of the Grauer Palace. That's fascinating. The soldiers, it's really strange. You focus and you can sort of feel, but you don't know how accurate it is. It's really tough. It's a bit. Those ones are definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only because you're doubting your senses a bit.
Yeah. It's all a bit weird.
It is, yeah.
I mean, she's likely to be in the palace, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's what he said, that bitch in the palace.
Yes.
And that does seem like the logical place for her to be.
Yes.
So I guess head towards that and try and find a soldier there.
Yeah, soldiers sitting on the outside of that particular palace.
That I think makes sense.
There's a variety of tall towers that leads up from the top of this palace. This is where, they rather proudly boasted, the largest ballrooms in the Vorbergland can be found. Indeed, the second largest ballrooms in Reichland.
I've just had a thought.
Yes.
I don't need to speak to her. I need to get a message to her. But then again, no, I do need to speak to her, because if I give a note, it might end up with him because he commands the army. I need to speak to her.
Our soldiers are sitting on the outside and they see you approaching. Tack, 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 tack. One of them actually comes forward and says, do you need an hand? He says, Father?
Thank you. I need to speak with Lady Nacht.
Have you got an appointment?
I don't. It's a brief matter. Could you convey me to her secretary or whoever handles such things?
He says,
that I can make an appointment.
He says, I'll check.
It is rather pressing.
Opens the doors, because it's small side doors at the side of the main palace. Opens them up and says, if you can come and just sit down here. He says, I'll be back with you in a moment. Scarpers off. You can hear him disappearing upstairs. But only one floor. And as he speaks, the other that he's speaking to almost forms in your senses. That's also fascinating, because you're aware there's another and you can hear them. There might be others in the room, but you wouldn't sense them or until they engage, until you're aware of them. You have no idea how this works. But it's fascinating to try it out. As you tilt your head and you hear him saying, there's a priest downstairs, wants to speak to Lady Nacht. His accent's changed. And the voice back says, right, who is he? He says, don't know. It's the one that came in the barge this morning. He says, right. Right. Oh, we're going to have to tell her. He says, right. Comes a reply. well, that's the case. Well, just tell him to wait while you go talk to him. Yes, yeah. Interesting he's come here, right? No. He didn't say. He says, might be bringing news. Well, we'll find out, won't we? If she tells us. Well, I'll go talk. Goes back down. Well, he says, if you can just wait, she's being talked to. He says, I'll get back up. She leaves you at the base of a staircase. No pennants hanging in here. None at all. Palace, devoid of them. You're more convinced it's some sort of thing that you're seeing that's not there. Is it speaking to something else about the people in here? Is it is it all metaphorical?
Yeah, well, is it? Yeah, because like obviously it's lined with Altdorf soldiers, and bristling with Altdorf weaponry, and so it is staked out as Altdorf territory, and that's what I'm sensing, maybe.
It's about 10 minutes.
Weird, maybe.
It's about 10 minutes before a voice. You heard the steps coming all the way down. Says, Father. He says, can I ask what it's in concerning with? I've no idea who this chap is.
No.
But it is the chap who's speaking before.
I have a very brief but very important message to convey to her.
Can I have your name?
Van Luitpold, Order of the Silver Flame.
Do you have a last name?
No.
He says, well, I'll ask on your behalf. He says, I'm promising nothing. She's very busy.
Of course, you can reassure her that my message will take no more than 5 heartbeats to convey, and it is a message that has come from Sigmar himself. I'm aware how that sounds, but it's true.
I'm not one to judge. Off he goes. Pops up the stairs. You hear him whistle about halfway up.
The temptation to do you have a last name in it?
And his footsteps disappears. Clearly a tall tower. Quite a tall tower. It's almost 20 minutes before he comes back. As he says, yeah, she'll see ya. She's got to finish off a meeting that she's in. Someone will come down and fetch you.
Of course.
When that's ready. So if you're happy sitting here, would you like a drink?
That would be most appreciated, thank you.
He says, we've got some mail.
A mug of ale would be terrific. Thank you.
All right. He says, I'll get you a mug of ale. We might have some dried sausage if you need any.
A little sausage would be most appropriate.
I'll see what we've got.
Obliged.
He's back down about 5 minutes later. A little tray and some strips of chewing meat. Excellent. It's about another hour before eventually, as the sky is beginning to darken on the outside, you're making your way up. As you're halfway up the stairs, a slight ping comes from off in the distance in that direction. And again, you can't help but put your hand up. Morsley's just risen.
Oh.
Tiny. Almost like a little star in the distance, but it's just risen and you felt it through the stone. Slight shiver as you then realise, wait a minute, given where I am, it's probably through the mountains. Maybe it hasn't actually risen yet. It's on the rise. It's past the horizon. You think, you shiver even more. Chap who's leading you up pays no attention.
Yeah, totally oblivious.
Oblivious to your
weird
private
priest
concerns.
Living in this weird supernatural
weird
world.
Seer man that you are, as you eventually arrive at the top, being an augur, so much fun. And you can sense as you reach the top, the breathing first, and then they almost form in your vision before you as you become quite aware of the two men that are up there. Again, things coming in and out of your your senses. But once you become aware of them, as you move up to the door and pass through a small antechamber, you're still aware of them behind you, even though the door shuts. How does that even work? It's like you've tagged them in an online game.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like I've used my eagle vision in Assassin's Creed, and now I know where they are.
Tapped them all. Right.
I can feel the guards. Can you highlight the patrol track for me, please?
That'd be really handy, wouldn't it? Which way are they going? That should be a talent.
That should be an augur talent.
You
Absolutely.
Totally should. That's awesome. The joys of writing your own talents is you can just make it up and add it in, because that's...
Oh, I'm having that.
That's bizarrely awesome. Feels like it's really worked for Myrmidian's eagle vision. Anyway, I know you're not a Myrmidian, and immediately no, I won't do. Tuck, 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 and voice from the inside. Yes, you can come in. Slightly annoyed, as opens up and says, Father Luitpold ordered the silver hammer. He said silver hammer. You're quite convinced, but he said it low because you think he's not sure of what he's saying. You might want to correct him though.
So flame.
On the other side. So, to your vision, she's tall. She's shorter than you, most are. But she's tall. She's shorter than Birdie, most are. But she's nevertheless tall for a woman. And you can sense her by her breathing, by the slight tut that comes from underneath her breath. But she's almost blind to you. In terms of your senses, you can hear her rather than sense her. As she stands up, the rustle of cloth. She's wearing a dress. That much you can sense. You can even feel the way it tips slightly to the ground underneath. Her feet move. She's wearing soft slippers. You're getting details that others wouldn't see, but she herself is almost blind to you. As she stands, there's a slight jingle. There's jewellery. She's definitely well presented. You're certain of that. Beyond that, her voice isn't muffled at all. There's no echo. Her hair probably isn't down. Her hair's probably up. There's a space around her. Her earrings are hanging in the space, and you can hear the slight shing in the same way that my voice was shinging off that earlier in the stream when I was pitching a bit lower. And shing. Yep. The room is 1, 2 windows, palatial. They're wide, proper glass. You can feel the sound reverberating off of them. Behind, it's much muddier. Pigeons. You can hear pigeons. She's got a dovecot out there somewhere. Almost certainly passing messages from one place to another. It's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. You don't have animal awareness of any sort, so I'm not going to give you any more details beyond that.
I really do not.
You really do not. This is not your forte. Enough to say, yup, pigeon.
Pigeons. They taste good in a pie.
A large table, and you can sense as you move forward, immediately the chairs are there, the table's there, the odd, takes you a wee while to figure it out. Just before she starts talking, you get the sense that these are pigeonholes. Maybe the pigeon got you going. Lots of square ones, and there's things in them.
Like scroll.
Yeah.
Things like you get in libraries.
Yeah. The table itself is bedecked with things. It's really difficult until you get closer to pick out what they are. Think? Lots of feathers sticking up, probably quills. Scrolls, deadenings of sound all over the place. Our table is full with things. You can sense the ink moving. I'm not sure why you can sense, but there's at least 5 inkwells.
Moving?
Moving. Shifting slightly. It's your own footsteps causing it to shift.
That's weird.
Still not used to this.
Pretty cool, though. Yeah.
Still not used to this. As you come in, and the enormity of it all settles onto your face as she pauses, as various things equally play across your face. She's as bemused by you as you are by this. It's enough to cause her to pause, not immediately talk, which you may have done. She takes you in, and then says,
I guess I will sketch out, use my etiquette noble, an appropriate bow.
She says, "There is no need. Do you need help to the chair, Father?"
Can I just confirm, is that the voice from the vision?
Yes.
Yes, good.
A bit echoey or less.
Yeah, but
far more
recognised
real.
Yeah,
but yes.
Yeah. If you I think I can find it.
Entertain acting?
No.
Then just do yourself fellowship checks. You're pretty good at this.
I'm pretty
anyway.
good at fellowship.
Yeah, as in you can, charm your way past. Yeah, nice. As you make your way over.
And he doesn't know exactly where the chairs are at first anyway, so it's not entirely
They swum into his senses, quite. As hand on it, move round, feel it, sit down. Whew. Can I have an endurance test? Let's see how pecked out you are from the long climb up the stairs. How welcome.
4 successes.
Excellent, you're fine. As you sit down, and she sits down also. I am told that you have something of exceeding importance that you wish to tell me that comes directly from Sigma. I will admit that this is not a common claim. However, now that I see you, she says, I am willing to give it some credence.
Thank you. And I intend to take up as little of your time as possible, for I know you must be busy. I come to bring you a warning. You should take care when walking the battlements at night. Perhaps hold off from walking the battlements at night.
Hold off from walking the battlements at night. Do you care to explain why, if you can?
I believe that someone here wishes you ill. Someone feels their freedom to pursue a course of action that they wish to pursue is being curtailed by you, and that they would be free to act on their more violent impulses were you not to be here any longer.
Now see, you are the second person, he says, to step forth and give me a warning, not the same warning, but a warning nonetheless, concerning my future here. And the second blind man.
We'll be unable to hide a surprise reaction to that one.
As she pens away, which I suppose lends either credence or collaboration.
My eye inquires to the identity of the other, my lady.
He wouldn't give his name. He was dressed in black. Bearded.
Can I offer a rough description of Dodgy Johan from what I remember?
Dodgy Johan! Yes, you can. As she listens and says, that would be a relatively close description, although there were no ravens, but there was one on the city wall, and a white one. It was seen as an omen by one of the soldiers, and it reached my desk. That matches.
Yeah, that sounds like that could have been Johan.
He was asking if I required any advice, and I told him that I did not think I required his. He took it with a shrug, and he left. But 2 in as many days. I think I shall take your advice and not. And take a tour of the walls, which I can't say was on the top of my agenda, but it is certainly a possibility. Looks at you. So, might I inquire as to where you have come from and where you're going?
Where have we come from? We come down the river.
So you've come through the canal systems, the
from the last big town up the
from
top place.
Seedlung is up there. Then you went all the way down the Tame, past Tame. All the way from Blutrock onto the River Blut, all the way over to the Bergen, from the Bergenhafen if you want your entire barge route.
I don't want all of it. I think from Tame is what I'll say. Well, we most recently come from Tame, and then we're going to be going on to... I've forgotten where we're going. Kemperbad?
Griswold. Griswold is the first stop. Kemperbad to reclaim barge.
Yeah, so then on to Griswold.
She smiles and says, "Thank you, Father. I appreciate your honesty." She says, "And thank you very much for the advice. I shall take it to heart. I have something I'd like to give you." She starts writing. Pardon me?
That's all right. If it's not too forward of me to ask, my lady...
You're already in my chamber, she says.
You'll probably blush a little at that. I believe I heard the presence of an elf within Black Rock.
She slides over a small piece of paper, not parchment. Anything that is written on that, if it arrives here, will get to me. Lest you see anything else that you think is of significant importance.
Thank you. Tuck it away very carefully in his writing kit.
I shall answer your question with a question. Why?
Why is there an elf here?
Why are you asking?
Simply I was surprised by their presence. And although I gleaned no glimpse of ill intent per se, my suspicion is that they were aligned with those who wish you harm.
Yes, there is one, she says. And it is interesting that you should say that they may be aligned with someone who wishes to do me harm. Then in kind, that elf's name is Astaroth, Green Ivy. Which I am reliably informed sounds like a pseudonym.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like any elven name I've heard before.
Apparently, from the forest to the south.
In Britonia?
Yes.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else.
Is there anything else? No, I think that's it. No, my lady, and thank you for giving me this much time.
She rings her bell. Cap comes in. You all require some milk to get down.
That would be appreciated, thank you.
And you are escorted all the way down the tower in the Grand Palace until eventually you're out the other side. And over there there's a garden. Over there is the chapel. And it is now dark. Morsley's definitely risen. Slight itch off towards that side. Huh. You have literally no idea where Mansley is. If anywhere.
But I do know where midnight is. Gotta love that.
And just even thinking that, you feel the slight distant cold burn of the flame. Flame that you're constantly protecting on the side of your face. Turn around, the blaze is on the front. A cold prickle across your forehead.
Should we perhaps explain to the viewers what we're talking about here? I don't think we've articulated it on the stream.
Not.
Shall we? So, within the career that Luitpold's currently in, one of the talents you can take is orientation, which means you can always know where north is, but you have to decide what the signs are. Is it that you can view the stars? Is it that you can see moss on trees, whatever? But Andy and I were talking about it, and what we decided was his spiritual connection with the sacred flame in Middenheim would be what he senses. So he doesn't really sense north. He senses where Middenheim is, and he can then navigate by that the way that other people can, because we thought that was quite characterful.
Because it rocks.
Yeah. It's that flame that like burnt his eyeballs out. So,
yeah,
you know.
Totally. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Itching out the back of those pits.
Yeah.
In that direction. So, late in the evening, he's going to wait for another day. He's going to head back to the chapel first.
Well, I think head back to the chapel first, because Habercorn's chambers are in the back of the chapel,
yes,
right?
They are.
So presumably she's going to come back at some point. So I guess he'll head back there, swing via the garden just in case she's doing a little bit of moonlight gardening.
She's not moonlight gardening, but she is out the back, sitting on a rocking chair, smoking. As she looks over and sees you coming forward. Huh. Well, that's something you didn't know. Blessed to her core.
Ooh.
That's something she's kept pretty frickin' hidden. Maybe that's how she got rid of the Sigmarites.
Not like old flaming hammer boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how she got rid of the Sigmarites so easily. The story wasn't quite accurate.
Yeah.
they weren't getting rid of her because it's her chapel.
Yeah.
And she's rocking backwards and forwards. And before you call, she calls out, "Took your bloody time." Her voice, if anything's even hoarser than it used to be.
Sorry, sister. I had business in the palace.
"I heard," she says. "What are you doing here?"
Just passing through, but I thought,
"You've grown taller."
have I?
"Yeah."
I mean, a good 4 inches of that's hair.
Ah. She shrugs. "Yeah, fair enough." You hear the ting tong in the background, just briefly. Ting tong. "Well, what are you up to?" She says.
Well,
"You pulled down anyone's pants lately?" Stealing fruit?
Sorry?
Stealing fruit?
No.
Sneaking out to a pub?
I don't have to sneak anymore. It takes some of the fun out of it, not going to lie.
I know quite a few of the brethren who wouldn't be drinking nothing. Officially.
Well, yeah, quite.
She says, "So, what's what?"
I came for advice, if I'm honest.
Don't need to tan your hide. Have you been bad?
I hope
He
not.
says, "You're not old enough not to go across my knee." She says.
I think I might be, but I mean, I wouldn't want to get the soldiers talking, sister. How close am I to her?
About the same distance you and I.
And are we outside?
Yeah.
Am I obviously I can't see, but am I aware of any source of illumination around here?
She has her back door open and there's sounds of burning coming from within.
So there's maybe some light coming
So
from
there's
within.
some light coming across from her. You're not sure how light it is or isn't. You're pretty sure it's dark. Maybe distantly, but there's nothing that sounds
She might
particularly
not have noticed the blindfold then.
Yeah, she might not.
So I'll kind of walk a little bit closer and try, if I can, to just slightly parabola my route so that I'm going into the light so that she can definitely see my face. I'm like, well, since recently the nature of Sigmar's touch upon me has changed. And I have racked my brains. I have perused what libraries I've had access to, and I can find little of the nature of divination within our cult. And yet I have...
Are you a blind boy? She said, "What happened?"
Yeah.
Do I want to know what happened? She says, "Sorry, I can't see too well anymore. My eyes are weak."
Sorry, yes, I am blind.
She says, as she reaches out and half fumbles to her cup and picks it up. "Yeah, I'm blind because I'm old." She says,
I'm blind because I enacted a ritual that burned my eyes out with holy flame.
"Are you sure you don't need to go with me knee?" That sounds like the sort of thing an idiot would do.
Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't be the first to suggest that. But no, my intent was...
"You did it yourself,"
Yeah.
she says.
I was at the...
"Yeah, Sigma walks in your footsteps. I can feel him.
I was at the synod
You're
in
cold."
Altdorf. There was a convocation of the saints, they called it. As many of those of us who were blessed by Sigmar as they could lay their hands on.
"Oh, didn't invite me, did they?"
Well, they might not have known, sister. I didn't until I met you today.
"Well, that's the way it should be." She says she takes a drink.
And at this convocation, I spoke to a few others, and I had a revelation about visions. There's a prophecy being spouted about the...
Stop. You're a lanky bastard. You need to be in a chair. She says, "Go fetch one up from the table. Sit down."
And he will do. And because he's just around her and he's more at ease, he'll just lean his stick against the wall and we'll just go and get it without any pretense.
"While you're there," she says, "get me a cup or two, will ya?
Certainly.
And then finish this off." You drink now.
Yeah?
We always did, you bastard. He says, number of times you stole me wine. You're allowed it this time. Takes the fun out of it, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
There's, you know where the cups are.
Yeah.
Do you smoke?
I do.
Got weed?
I do.
Well, serve yourself then.
I shall.
And as you sit down with your drinks, she also gets you to fetch a little table.
Yeah.
To put everything down on. And she's like, all right, spill your guts. What else you got to say?
So, shall I do it or shall I just info dump it?
Info dump, I think.
Yeah, info dump.
Because, I think that's,
Still
there's no point going through all the things that we heard from our last stream.
So basically, his revelation about the nature of this prophecy and how, while elements of it may be true, there's something manipulative because it was through the world and it was the eyes that was the problem, and that all the people that were repeating these things were their vision was corrupt because they were being influenced by magic and the world and the malign powers and all that kind of stuff. And he realised that true prophecy, that was why true prophets and oracles were blind, and he knew that he was getting visions, but those visions were coming, were corrupt because of that. And so he enacted this player that he had at the back of his holy book, and did this. And now the nature of his visions has changed, and it's strange and weird, and he doesn't understand it. And he's hoping to get some lore about what it is, how to control it, and things like that.
Yeah. I was in Altdorf when it came on me. She says, I was running a racket. I don't talk about what I was doing when I was younger very much, but everyone kind of got the gist of it all, didn't they? They knew I didn't come from the most salubrious of backgrounds. And then it came on me. And you know what came on me? It was something that made me decide that Altdorf was not my favourite place. I was sitting down, right? And my boys were inside and they were coming out. And they had just... we were taking banners and cloths from them, yeah, because they didn't have no coin. And we were selling them off. And the one they had a big hammer of Sigma on it, yeah. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the hammer of Sigma outside of pictures. I haven't seen the hammer of Sigma outside of pictures, that much is certain. But I've seen a lot of pictures, and there's this big imperial cross in it, right? And there's this big hammerhead, and there's this claw, and there's runes down the side of it. Runes that were put in place by some dwarf runesmith. It's a dwarf weapon, yeah. And there's this handle, yeah. And it's a weapon that were for dwarves. And it were given to Sigma. This is what we all know, yeah. And I saw it. And I saw it. And I saw it. And I knew something were wrong. I just knew something were wrong. I didn't know what were wrong, but that was the day it came on me. I wasn't no priestess. I wasn't no nothing. I didn't know what was happening. It took me maybe another year before I realised that I was seeing things. I thought I was going a bit bonkers, you know. I thought something had gone wrong with me head. I'd seen too many things, so I backed out. Ended up in a Temple of Shalia. I was making a donation, because we always made donations to Temple of Shalia, yeah? You know, to be merciful on us for all what we did. We knew we weren't doing what everyone else thought were right. So we made donations there. I mean, the sisters looked after us, right? I was young then, and over in there, and the sister comes up to me and says, I think you need to go talking to our father. And I said, you ain't got no fathers, what are you talking about? And she was like, no, over at the old Hammer temples. They're everywhere. You throw a stone and you hit 3 of them. Yeah. And I was like, well, what are we doing that for? She said, I just think you should. I just got this feeling. Oh, whatever. I'm not too, bothered one way or t'other, so I ignored her. But I ended up inside a temple about maybe 3 months later, near Ice Summer, after Sigma Day. And, we were nabbing the hammer. It had gold on it. We thought it might be worth something. And the priest was an old bugger. And the temple guards, they weren't for much. We knew 2 of them anyway. So, tipped them off. They pissed off. In we went. I stepped over and that was that. That were it. I just knew. I knew things I couldn't know. At that point, I didn't know what the word revelation was. Beyond, I've had a revelation or whatever other people saying. I didn't really understand. I didn't realise what it actually meant, revealed by a god. Actually revealed. You get information that no one could know outside of that, and there it was, right in front of me. There was this hammer that I was going to steal, and I thought maybe I won't. But there was the one thing on it, yeah? It was this handle, yeah? And I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, I could wield that. That was my first thought. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll wield that. The rest of my story don't actually matter. The next step is about a year later. I've been with a cult now for about a year. They had hidden me inside the cathedral. I was not coming out. They were very interested. I was just a kid from the street that was suddenly somehow blessed or something. No one really understood what was what. And it was on a big service at Sigma Day. And in they came. Now, the Emperor was there, Luitpold. Emperor Luitpold, appropriate. Now, Emperor Luitpold, he had his son with him, oldest son, next emperor. But he never becomes emperor. There's Emmanuel. Yeah? Crown Prince Emmanuel is there. And he's tall, and he's been trained since birth. There's Karl Franz's little brother. He's playing antics, being a bit of an arse. There was tugging at ropes and getting told off by others. And he had the hammer, and I looked at it, and I knew that something strange had happened because of its aft. And I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I was in the same thing. It was us, blessed Lord. We were a choir. Can you imagine me as a choir? I wasn't smoking quite as much then. Yeah? And the haft is like this. Dwarf hands
should be bigger.
Are like this. They're big. And I looked at it. I couldn't help it. I stood up and I walked over. Now, obviously, there's knights everywhere, and I'm a bit of a dodgy girl. Yeah, at this point, I must be about 20, 21, 22. And I just got up and started walking over. I got pulled down by the father who was on the other side. However, the little choir, yeah, fell. His name's Peter. I think he's dead now. Anyway, he pushed that priest out of the way. I don't know why. I presume blessed or something. And I got right by. And I just found myself walking up to it. I was as far as you and I are apart. Yeah. I was looking at it, and on his hip, Gory Drengas, big fuck off rune sword. He's got the actual rune fang. Not only that, I know it's the wrong one. Somehow in history they got mixed up. He doesn't have the right one for rune fang. And I don't know how I know it, but I know it. It's got something during the wars or something. They've mixed them up. And he's got Beast Slayer. And it's sitting on his hip. Gory Drengas. And they're there. Ceremonially, hammer on his lap, like it's his. And I'm looking at it. And I know the haft has to have been changed or something. Look at the size of the fucker. There is no way no dwarf did it. Now I thought, well, maybe the dwarves had repurposed it when they gave it to him. So he could wield it. But that was the day that I realised that the stories, what I did read and what I was being taught, weren't real. Because I got taught that it was just given to him. It's like that. Well done. I'm the Eye King. Call me Kurgan. There you go. Oh, thanks for your armour. Yeah, exactly. No, it's a big armour, yeah? Big end, it's all golden. And it's been reworked. So that means the stories, what I know, just ain't right. That set me off on one. I don't know why I got so caught up in it, but I got caught up on that. I couldn't get out of my head, so I snuck out. A lot harder to do than to say. I had to choose my moment. That was 2 years later. That's how long it took me to get out. They do not like things outside the control here. wander around all sorts of places and ended up in this monastery, Three Brothers Monastery. Yeah, and each one of these brothers is a saint. What has done certain things, and it's in the middle of Ostland, middle of nowhere. You got this big, long, dirty road to get to it, and you're dangerous, really dangerous, right on top of a little hill, and they're all monks, every single last one of them, and I was welcomed. They'd been expecting me. That came as a bit of a shock. I wasn't even sure what I was just chasing stories. I've been chasing stories for a while, yeah. I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going. I was constantly hearing things, seeing things. No, I ain't now seeing or nothing. It was more like guidance. Like, you know, the gods are walking with you, that sort of thing. I eventually found myself there. And that's where I saw it. It's a big rendition of Kurgan and Sigma. There's the Andorf, yeah? And the Andorf, the big hammer that they had, yeah, it was a different hammer, yeah? It was simpler. It looked different, I mean, so it's kind of thick. And my eyes were good then. I remember it in my head really clearly. Big thing. Oh, obviously, it could be anything, yeah? Because who put that up there? Who's to say what it was? And what struck me most on that one, though, no Imperial Cross. On the hammer, no skull. No cross, no nothing. And then it hit me. Obviously there should be no Imperial Cross. Because it's a dwarf fucking hammer.
Yeah, that's not a dwarf symbol, is it?
Nah. And I'll admit to almost pissing myself. I sort of staggered. I wasn't quite with myself. And I was like, and I could feel it. And I was like, this is, And the monks, they were really nice. Half of them were blind. Half of them couldn't talk. And between the lot of them, a bunch couldn't hear. Because each one of the brothers, some could hear, some could not see or whatever. So that was the three saints, what had founded this place. They couldn't speak the truth, they couldn't hear the truth or something like that. I forget. Those who could speak would sit there nattering away at me because, you know, they really like pissing off the brothers who couldn't speak, yeah. You know how it is. But they were deaf. Couldn't hear a word they were saying for half of them. They wouldn't shut up. They're like bloody birds. It made it really difficult to understand a single thing that was going on there. But I saw it and I was like... So I asked. Went up to the rabbit and I said, yeah, I've had this thought. Yeah, your hammer on your window, yeah. It's simple. It's got a circle. It's a simple head and a simple claw, yeah? And a haft. It's a pretty thick haft too, if I say so myself. It's got a big... It's more like an axe haft. What's going on here? And he said, well, there is multiple ways of viewing this, he says. And I said, I can't understand you. The only reason I know what he said is because he started writing it down. So we have this disjointed conversation, yeah? He can't really see, his writing's terrible, it's the worst. Ended up having three of them there, the High Abbot and two abbots, and they were working together to try and communicate to me what they did know. It was difficult, but we got there, and their opinion was that the hammer had changed over time. It had become a new version. That the holiness of Sigmar had imbued it as a symbol of Sigmar itself. And over the course of time, it had become not simply Galmarar's skull splitter. It was well beyond that. It was the hammer of Sigmar itself. And that was their view. And I was like, all right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, all right, I can go with that. And he's like, the Runefangs are the same. They used to have a different character. When they were first forged, I was like, well, what sort of character? I'll admit, I'm paraphrasing heavily here. What sort of character? Right, scribbles. But eventually, yeah, there came the opinion that some of them had got bigger, some of them got smaller, their shapes had changed, the blades themselves had all been fashioned in a similar way. But Peak Leveler was now a massive blade capable of slicing through limbs that are like this thick. Where if you get another blade, like, I don't know, Danis Vengrin, a symbol of vengeance itself, very appropriate given where it comes from. That blade itself, it sung when your enemies were close by, buzzed and burned in your hands. You could never be taken by surprise if you had that bastard on your hip, yeah? And I was like, all right, so you're saying they were all the same to begin with? And he said, nah, they were always designed different, it's just they now look different. They now look more like what 2,000, 3,000 years of faith has turned them into. So I couldn't help myself. I said something I probably shouldn't. I said, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because you've got what was originally created, a symbol of mutual respect between two great realms created by dwarves. What can, create the most amazing magical artifacts, but they don't do the magic thing, And then on the other side, you've got they fall into human hands and they change into someone else. I got kicked out. Kicked out. They all fell silent. Well, 2/3 what could speak. I'm kicked out. There was me on my arse, in the mud, in the rain. I'd only been in Ostland. Horrible place. Took me 2 days to get back to anything resembling civilization, and that was just a tiny village. And I was just uncomfortable with everything, so I decided I was done with all of that. Ended up a couple of years later down in Vizsland, all the way down the south of Vizsland. Met this fella who was living on top of a pole. As you do. I'll admit to being a bit surprised. I was looking up at him, and he was sitting there with his legs all folded up. And he looked at me, and he said, you don't by any chance have any food, do you? I've been up here for a while. And I was like, how long you been up there on top of your pole? And he was like, 19 years. I laughed. I said, what have you been eating? He said, well, whatever food, whatever water I can gather, and people just bring things for me. An aesthetic. He didn't say that, but that's what it sums up to, yeah? I was like, all right, yeah, I'll get you some food. So I got him some food. Didn't say anything. He just looked at me, and he said, go to Ubersreik. Blunt as that. And I said, why? And he said, because you'll find your answers there. I was like, so that's what you're telling me in return for food? He was like, yeah. There you go. Nice one. Then he shit off the side of it, right in front of me. Rude bugger. I was like, fuck you. That almost landed on me, you bastard. And he was like, got shit somewhere. That was fair. There was a fair bit of dong down there, but it was halfway down a cliff. I hadn't even realised, but that was obviously what he did is, well, yeah, there you go. So I ignored him. I mean, why would I listen to some random bugger on top of a pole? So it was in the last Gerhardt temple. I decided to follow the pilgrimage of Sigmar. I figured there might be something behind that. And the pilgrimage of Sigmar, if you don't know, it starts in Altdorf, where he abdicated, and then supposedly takes the route that he took to go back to High King Kurgan. Yeah? And I was following all those temples, popping into them, and it was the last Gerhardt temple. The last Gerhardt temple's called out because he killed Gerhardt. We've discussed it before. Yeah. But we've not discussed the temple itself, because, well, why would we? But it's got a claw, yeah? That claw is about, I don't know, the AI. It's more than me full standing. It's big, maybe even bigger. I mean, it was down in a bit of a dip. It's big, and it's just into the rock, yeah? And the temple itself, it's carved into the side, like dwarves do. Carved into the side of the mountain. You go into it, and the last Gerhardt is there. And that's supposed to be the claw of Gerhardt, what he did kill. I'll put a bit of scale on things. If I'm telling the truth, I'd always imagined in my mind something about 12 foot tall. Sigmar being all heroic. That claw was about 12 foot tall, I suppose. That really did change my opinion of what went down there. And I was there, and this is the last step. That's why it's called the last Gerhardt temple, because there's a bunch of steps at the end of the pilgrimage, the Gerhardt temples, that go up into the mountains. And each one you do a different thing, and you pray Sigmar in a different way. And I've done all that now after this claw. And I sat down. There it was. Smack, bang, crack. So a crack in the side, and the wallet was Sigmar's armor dead. That felt real. That felt proper real. But it confirmed something for me. That hammer must have changed, because the blow was something like this thick. Yeah, like that big. Well, the hammer, what I did see when I was with the Emperor, was about this big. So much more impactful, you know?
I mean, there's another logistical problem, though, isn't there?
Yeah, which one?
Well, if he had the hammer with him then, how'd he get back to Althoff?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? There's all sorts of rumours as to exactly when happened when. Who can say? But it got back to Althoff somehow. Who knows what happened with Sigmar? No one was there. Well, no one's talking that was around that time anyway. So, I was quite convinced I was onto something. So I went back to Nuln to speak to some elves. I figured that was what I needed to do. Because they're old, right? Yeah? The dwarves, they don't tell you nothing. Oh, I knew it was not worthwhile. They're not going to tell me nothing unless I've got something particularly impressive for them to open up their vaults. And I'm just I was a street rat. I knew they wouldn't tell me nothing. Elves, though, elves love to talk. Once you get them started, get a bit of wine in them, they just don't shut up. They just go on, and you just have to wait till they get to the bit that you want. But I was looking for an elf that were old. Turns out none of them were old enough. Turns out not many elves reach that sort of age. It requires something special or whatever. And I was a bit upset, disappointed. I was hoping the elves were the answer. So I had to go back to the dwarf idea. But it was through the elves that I did this. I ended up being very useful to the foundation of one of these elven houses, yeah? And I helped them out with dealing with humans because they weren't very good at it. They were just talking too much. Didn't get to the point. So I said, shut the fuck up. Go. So they let me use one of their favours. Now, you know, elves and dwarves don't really get on. It's a bit of bullshit, really. All it is there is a lot of outstanding grudges. That's it. But if you resolve some of those grudges, that helps. One of them happened to be the descendant of someone who was part of the War of Vengeance, yeah? I figured this out. By this point, I'll become relatively well-read in matters concerning Sigmar and matters concerning the dwarves. I've been studying them, particularly concerning their rune masters and how they build their weapons. So I figured this out. We ended up getting them down. They resolved it. They paid off a debt, cost them an arm and a leg, but it opened a trade route. Both sides were delighted, so I got to get in. So this was up at Carrick Norn, and I was speaking to this law master, ancient fella. Really ancient fella. White beard, down past his legs, his little helpers, yeah, they'd be carrying his beard around behind him. Little young beardlings, you know. And he pointed out all manner of historical stuff. Problem is that a lot of the old ones are gone. And a lot of the records were also gone, destroyed through the Goblin Wars and everything else. But they still had some records from this time. And a really good image drawn by a dwarf draftsman inside one of his big tomes. And this tome was, I might know, it's about 6 foot tall. And there's an image of Sigmar in there. And he is carrying an hammer. What does look like the one that were all the way back up in the Three Brothers monastery. Not the same. Really close, though. Simpler. Rounder. Haft that was thicker, but well within his grasp. But thicker. It looks like it could have been made for a dwarf. And there clearly were the runes marked on it. Very similar runes to the ones what were marked on the rune fangs. Now, I don't know the runes too well. He's not going to tell me. He was just showing me the Sigmar things. That was my route in. And he was going to limit me to just that. Because somewhat transactional, you know? So I saw that and I was like, well, that's a thing. Well, that pretty much confirms that changes are afoot, yeah? Flips over, goes through, and Sigmar, I'd had long-standing, strong relations with this old. And an order had founded in that old, worshipping Sigmar, around about 2,300 years ago. I know it's a long way to get there, but if I just said I went to a dwarf old and said I was there, and it's a long evening. I'm like the elves. Puff. So there I am, and I pop over, and they're dwarves. They were ancestor worshipping. And that gave me a surprise. I mean, a big fucking surprise. And it wasn't their ancestor, but they were worshipping. It was ancestor worship, no other way of putting it. But they were praising him for his great deeds, what he did in life. And it was important that a shrine were maintained for him for the enormous things that he did for the dwarves. He ended a war that lasted for centuries, 1,000 years. And he brought it to a close at that far pass. And as far as they were concerned, that was an act that was important as any act that had been committed by Grimnir, Valea, or whoever. It was defining for their entire realm. So it required a shrine. So I ended up staying with them for a good 5 years. Sitting down, finding out what's what with them. And they had all manner of stories what were completely different to the stories what we hear. Some of which I may have laced into what we've discussed over the course of time, which might make you a bit more of a rebel as far as most are concerned. Where he was just a really good man who did the best that he could in a very difficult environment. They grounded him in mortality. They didn't have any further step beyond that. But they grounded him in doing the best that he could under often very difficult circumstances, facing off against very much the worst that the world had to offer. But importantly for them, they marked a key event. An event where he moved from simply being Sigma, who tried, to Sigma, who was almost a living ancestor as far as they were concerned. And that is when he went through and passed through the Silver Flame. He walked into the Silver Flame at the top of midnight. So Ulrich's Silver Flame, cold as fire. And he did something that none of the Teutigans, the natural tribe what were there, that he he had just conquered, did. And he walked in, and according to the dwarves, he spoke to the god, Ulrich himself, and walked out the other side.
That's what my order believes also, the Order of the Silver Flame. That's in our, and he'll tap his holy book, that's in our stories.
He looks at you, she looks at you. Wait, you're in an Order of the Silver Flame?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. What's that?
We guard the Silver Flame from a distance.
Sigma?
Yeah.
Not Ulrich?
No. The Ulrichans don't let us in the temple, so that's why we...
An order?
Around. Yeah.
So, do you have a capitula?
Yeah.
Which one? What's his name?
Stoltz.
Huh. I had no idea.
We're small. There's not many of us.
Well, maybe that's why I had no idea. So, that's interesting.
I mean, I can show you the.
I can't read.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anymore. My eyesight's gone. So, that is interesting, isn't it? How it all keeps on touching, going round. So they marked out.
You'll noticeably shiver at the coincidence.
They marked out that he had become a great hero of his people through doing that. He had been recognised by one of their gods. And that is when he moved from being one type of human to another. I don't think they recognised it as a deification per se. But it's hard not to read it as that. Very hard. Particularly given that, according to them, there was this priest, you'll have heard of him, Johann Hellstrom, the very first theogenist, the grand theogenist, I suppose, theogenist back then. But he came from Midnight. He was a Teutogan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that either. I thought he was Unberrigan. But no, he was a Teutogan. He come from Midnight. And he was the one that came down with the message that Ulrich had accepted him as a god. And that he had crowned him. That changed everything, obviously, for them. Now, the dwarves didn't have this. And by that, I mean they didn't have him as a god. But they did have the Johann Hellstrom. He were real. Definitely. They had treated with him. He had even been up to the old. And he had spoken with the Eye King there. It's part of their records, but they hadn't yet to pop up proper ancestor worship of Sigma. That didn't come for another couple of 100 years or so. So I was quite caught up with all this, and near the end of my time there, I asked, can I join up? Can I join up? And they were like, yeah, of course. There was nothing to them. They had no contact with the broader cult of Sigma at all. And strictly speaking, neither do I.
So that's the order that you're in?
Sort of. I mean, as much as you can be.
Does it have a name?
No.
Fair.
No. They don't have a name. They're very simple, practical folk. They're just there doing what they think is right.
In Carricknorn?
Yeah, in Carricknorn. It's not even a place that he's known for. No. And it's not even. It's none of them see it's anything interesting or important. Yeah, it's just this small shrine to someone what did do an extraordinarily good deed to them. But the secrets that they had, it was fascinating. So I came back, and I'll admit I might have fallen back on my old ways and decided that I'd say that I was, a priestess and whatnot. Did that for a while. Then I went for nun, much easier. Priestesses come with a host of expectations, so I went for nun not long after that. That worked pretty well. That worked pretty well, actually. And I ended up being found by the cult. And this is where it now ties back to what you were saying. I was picked up just outside of Noah. Now, I'm almost 40-something by this point. I was picked up there. They just had themselves a big internal issue, yeah? A bunch of mercenaries up in the Grey Mountains had been causing them problems, and they lost. I mean, they really badly lost. They hired more mercenaries to try and deal with it. There was a siege up in the Grey Mountains, and it all went very wrong. Very, very wrong. And they were kicked out and driven back, and there was an awful lot of recriminations going on. So there's this Count, is that Count, which one is that? Count of None. I forget off the top of my head. It's the father of the current countess, I think. Maybe his father. It doesn't matter. 20 years ago. No, be the father of the current countess, yeah? So it's him, whatever his name is. Wasn't paying that much attention then. And there were a lot of delegates of Sigma that had come down from Altdorf because they basically wanted to shout at them for fighting inside, much like they should have been doing here in Ubersreik. And one of them took a beeline straight to where I was. I was passing through. I had no interest in any of this rubbish. I was still chasing down potential dwarven olds. I was hearing there were some really old ones up the Middle Mountains. I thought, I'll pop up there. But he made a beeline to me. He was a seer. No other way of putting it. He was blind, big bearded fellow. He wore himself straps around his head. And he were led by another seer. She, about 5'2", really small, and she guided him around. She were effectively the eyes, and he were the voice. But he only voiced what she saw. It was a bit complicated. I'll admit I didn't fully understand what was going on, but the pair of them worked together, and they were uncanny, as you'd expect. They were stepping over stones that they surely shouldn't be able to see, and making the way around easy and that sort of thing. And I thought that was amazing at the time. Now, I've not had much of an eyesight for almost 10 years, the last 5 years, 4 years. 3, it's been really bad. And I realise it's a little bit less magical than I first thought. You just adapt, don't you? But I didn't see that at the time. I thought it was magic, like the gods themselves were guiding, and that's what it felt like.
I mean, it might have also been that, though. I mean, that's what it's like for me.
Yeah, well, maybe it is. And they dragged me off. took me out to the middle of nowhere by this old crossroads. Signs pointing different directions. And they used that as a metaphor for my life.
It's a bit heavy-handed, but
yeah. I thought the same. Although I think it more now than I did back then. I was a little bit caught up in the whole of it all. And they had seen me. And they had seen that I was in a place in my life where I could make a difference or not. And I was like, all right, I'll get to it then. If I can make a difference, tell me what it is or don't. I was a little bit blunt then, still am. And they said, yeah, well, there's capitulars, isn't there, who want to look after important shrines to Sigma. He says, but there's a lot more than you realise, love. And I was like, well, how many are there? She's like, hundreds. I mean, truly, in truth, they're capitulars because they're looking after ancient sites that matter. And that's what you should be doing. And I was like, all right, well. And I don't know why I said it, but I pretty much admitted to not really being part of the cult. I was just, doing my own thing. And they invested me on the spot. I was like, what? Yeah, you can't. You're like, no, you invested on the spot. There you go. You're not part of the cult. Like, you can't really just do that, can you? I didn't know if they could or they couldn't. I didn't know better. And they're like, yep, we've done it. There you go. You don't need to worry anymore. I was like, where do I go? Where do you think? Well, I don't know. I said, well, we don't know either. Like, what do you mean you don't know? I thought you were the seers. And they're like, no, we've got no idea. We just know you've got to go there. Like, so where do I go then? And she was like, and he was like, so, and after a great deal of thought, and 2 days in a pub, we eventually came up with I should go to Ubersreik because somebody had said it to me once in the past when I were in a temple. And I thought, as good as anything else. So they came with me, yeah? And that's how I ended up here. This place. I know it's a bit of a convoluted route to get to this, but it's how I ended up here. They stayed with me for a good couple of years. Grounded me in the place, made sure that no one asked against me. Young Freuds, they took me in. I ended up telling the Duke that I'd had a somewhat uncharacteristic upbringing to this, and he's like, yeah, well, it's just a chapel, isn't it? No one looks after it. It's yours. So that's how I got here. And that leads us to the last bit. These two, they would divine every single day. They would wake up, they would try to figure out what it was that they needed to do, and it would typically involve eating their breakfast. And then they would try to figure out more, and it would eventually lead to their lunch. And finally, they would actually get somewhere. And normally each evening, they understood what they had to do, and they sat down and they prayed. And that is where it all came to fruition for them. Now, you're asking, what do I do? I have no idea, son. But I do know what they did. Because I watched it a lot. In particular, she did something different to he. She would pray. And pray. And pray. And keep on praying, mumbling under her breath, couldn't hear a word she was saying, until she thought that she'd reached somewhere, some sort of epiphany, some sort of understanding, yeah? And she had bones. The most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because it felt like I was watching something out of, some sort of story what I heard. And she claimed they were the bones of a saint. And she would throw them down, and they would point to where she was supposed to go. And she was the one what did get all the messages. She was the one that did understand everything, yeah? And she used bones, a saint's bones. And I shook my head multiple times. We talked about it quite a lot. And she was like, well, it works. I was like, all right. You're throwing bones. I laughed at her quite a lot too. She was like, shut it, it works. E, completely different. He saw very different. He didn't see like great visions of the future. He just saw where they should go next. How they should hop. who's this you talk to? No real revelation at all. Nothing to it. Now, he'd start off with often reciting prayers to put himself in the right mindset. And he would take deep breaths, sit down there, and take deep breaths, sit down there, until eventually he got himself centered. Because he said he liked to center himself until there was nothing in his head at all. I was like, yeah, well, sorry, son. That's most of the time for you. I ain't changed much. Until eventually he got there. And when he did, that's when he called on the saints. On the great heroes of the past. Now, he was of the opinion that ancestor worship was at the very core of Sigmarism. Understanding the saints, understanding those who came before us, was essential. But most importantly, understanding who was in your blood. Even if it were no one. And it was his opinion that everybody in the Empire, no matter who they were, could eventually trace back to Sigmar. Everyone, he said, was an heir to Sigmar's throne. We were all his children. Every single one of us. That wouldn't have been the case in the past, but after a certain amount of time, all of those individual little bloodlines have converged on that single point, and everyone can trace it back. And he said you'll find that almost everyone, what is blessed, has got one or two sitting back there in the past. Those who have also spoken on behalf of Sigmar. And I was like, all right, fair enough. So who do you up? And he told me his saints, and I'd never heard of any of them. And he went through it all. He said he spoke to them. And I said, how do you speak to them? And he pulled it out. He had himself little effigies of each one of the saints. He never used them. He just carried them, yeah? But in his mind, the ones what he carried, they were there. And when there was something to do, they did something. I do not understand what they did. I have no idea what they did. But they did something. Probably ain't much help to you.
How did he know what saints?
No idea. They're his bloodline.
Ah, well, that's not much help.
Yeah, well, probably not, given your old orphan thing.
Yeah.
But there are ways to trace bloodlines, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly magic. Ask around. You might get something off that.
Oh well.
There might be something on the back of that. As for bones, know any saints?
Well, Arnold. And also, I was going to ask you about this. Like, there's Arnold, but this was someone else's chapel first, right?
It was?
Yeah, like, the fella on the right is Arnold out front, but the fella on the left is someone else. And it was his chapel first. Her chapel?
Yeah, yeah.
Is she the one with the spear?
Yeah.
That you never told me about before?
She shrugs.
But it's not Helga, right?
Helga?
Helga, the Saint Helga.
She looks here. All right, how'd you know?
It is Saint Helga.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
You know she's a Davenik.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny.
All loops round, you know.
But she used a lance, right? And that's not a lance in the stained glass window.
Who knows what she used? It's stories.
That's artistic impression, right?
Yeah. You know, that's why I went to the olds to try and find the real stories. But they're not going to know anything about this.
So this was Saint Helga. So
yeah.
Is this where Davenik's not from around here, is he?
Nah, they're from up in Prince of Aldorf, I think. South End. But Davenik, that's where the town is.
Yeah.
But Bloodline might have come up from here.
Well, plus she died near here, right?
Yeah.
That was
No. Strictly, if the stories are true, she died not far from Frugalorn. Huge fuck off mountain. Just overlooking Ubersreik.
Yeah.
Just on the other side.
This is the nearest
imperial
civilization.
Yeah. So yeah.
So this was her temple before?
Well, I wouldn't have said it was, but if you say it is, well, that's something new to me. She folds her arms, you sure?
The goblin used to have a chain round his neck.
What?
You know the little goblin
statue?
statue?
I know the goblin. Used to poke at all the time.
Yeah, he used to have a chain round his neck. It's worn away now.
Oh, I know that.
Well, no, it's worn away. A long time ago. But that would make sense, right? She was centuries back, right?
Yeah. Quite a while ago.
I don't suppose her bones are lying around.
No, is her?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Under the sacristy. I know, I dug around in there. She's the most holy of holy people ever.
So,
well, I presume it's his.
Well, could I maybe have a look?
Says, well, we might say no, eh? She says, and she gets up. It's going to sound ridiculous. Can you help me through?
Yeah, of course I can. As we're walking, one other thing I was going to ask you, I didn't want to interrupt your flow. I learned your lesson about the elves. But when you was talking about runefangs,
yeah.
What do you know about Draktuki?
Draktuki, Dragon's Tooth, Drakvold, Runefang.
It's a Drakvold's runefang.
Yeah.
Who's got that nowadays then?
Who knows? I mean, I'm quite convinced they've been mixed up.
Because I've twice had visions about it. And since I lost my sight, so real visions.
Well, there you go.
Like a sort of room that's like squarish but kind of spiraling at the same time.
The room of Valeric the Mad. She says, yeah, no, it's on Galmaraz as well, which makes no sense to me.
Is it possible that it might have been held by Duke of Midland?
Maybe. I wouldn't be able to say. Probably, actually. Because Midland is now pretty much covers what was old Drakvold.
Because I was near him, like not near him, but
yeah,
you know,
he might have been carrying it.
Yeah, maybe I just picked up on that.
Yeah, maybe felt it. I mean, I felt one of them when I went by as well.
Yeah,
I knew it was Gory Drengas. Knew its name. Don't know why. I just did. She's wrong. She's a seer. You're convinced?
Yeah.
She's been seeing things her entire life. She just doesn't realise it. She's been losing her vision because it's been weak, and the more she's got older, the more she's lost her vision.
And the more she's gained visions, perhaps.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're quite convinced she's probably a seer too. And there's a certain amount of concern in that, given what you previously learned concerning how the prevalence of blessings has increased. She's gone from perhaps one type of blessing into a completely different style. In some respects, so have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about... and this
You're a nosy little bugger, ain't you?
Well, I met someone who said he
goes
knew.
over.
I met someone who said he knew.
Picks up a small sledgehammer and goes tonk, tonk into the middle of the sacristy.
Wasn't expecting it to be quite so blasphemous.
She says, "How else are you going to get in?" I'll put it back. Bang, bang. What are you saying? She go bang, bang.
I met a priest who said he knew you.
All right. I mean, not many do.
Father Gert.
She stops.
I think he knew you before he was a priest, though.
All right. Yeah, I remember Gert. What about him? Bang. Bang.
Oh, just he said he knew you used to knock about with you down here.
Hardly, says. Dodgy fella if ever I saw one. I liked him because he were proper dodgy. He were a thief. He tried to steal from here, actually. He says, that was a bit later, though. Yeah. First met him, actually, in Visenland.
Well, he's up in... Mistool? Like, I can't read my memory's handwriting very well.
He's up somewhere in Delbenoff.
Somewhere up in Delbenoff.
There you go.
Somewhere up in Delbenoff. In a little village.
He's still alive. I'm surprised. He seems like the sort of get into trouble. Right. Don't look much, I know. Mostly dirt down there. This is how I found it. But this is the... that's the bones of definitely him.
That's definitely Arnold.
It's definitely him. It's not her.
Yeah.
These are not the bones of the saint that protects the temple. These are completely different bones. And they're mostly small bones. The longer bones aren't here at all. It's interesting.
Like... I mean, that is interesting.
He says, nah. She digs around. Most of the bones are missing.
Yeah, all the long ones are gone.
There weren't a skull, but we had almost everything else. She digs around for a while, doesn't find any more, and goes, no, wait a minute.
When did you last look at
This is his bones.
Yeah, this is his bones.
What, did he take the other ones? Cheeky bugger.
Who?
Marcia. What did live with me for 2 years. He's run off with the bones that are down there and left his own ones. Cheeky bugger. She picks one up. That ain't the bones what were here. Look at it. It's almost white. The ones that are down there were dirty and yellow and old and horrible.
Am I convinced that it's Arnold's bones?
Yes.
Though? It's like, no, they're Arnold's bones.
Well, whatever bones were down here before were not Arnold then.
Well, they might have been Helga's bones.
Yeah, well, I suppose they might have been. What a thief. Well done. I didn't even notice. I didn't even see it. Well, I suppose he left something.
Yeah, and they're blessed bones. They're bones of Arnold. For all that Arnold's not... How was it you said it felt to me? Like he was guarding it.
Yeah, he was guarding it.
It's not his temple, but he was guarding it.
Yeah.
So like Arnold, this isn't his temple, but he's guarding this temple.
Well, it's a chapel.
Chapel.
She says
Apologies.
with a wry smile on her face. Always made that mistake.
Well, it's a chapel now. Who's to say it was a chapel before?
It's a chapel now. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Maybe you should just take them.
Well, if this isn't their own...
I ain't no seer. She says I don't need them.
That seems reasonable. I mean, how many are there?
8.
8. Oh, of course there's 8. Of course there's 8. And they're small enough that they would fit in a pouch.
Yep.
Yeah.
The longish pouch, but yep.
We'll pop them in his pouch. I mean, that feels...
Let's be glad there ain't no one that's seen this.
Yeah.
Says it's
You're kind of waiting for the crack of thunder or anything. Nope.
All right. Given everything what is happening, I got something I want to show you.
All right.
You're going to have to help me get there.
Sure.
And that's why 50 minutes later, you find yourself in a deep cellar. Wendell Youngfried. There he is. You'd heard about Wendell more than once.
Yeah.
There's no doubt this is the boy, because he's still
I
wearing...
mean, I think I met him when he was very little.
Yeah. Last time you saw me was about 9, before he was even doomed.
Yeah, if even that.
Maybe 8. Oh, in fact, maybe even a bit more than that, like 7 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've no doubt.
I remember he was just a snotty whimpery kid who used to chase Gerhardt around.
The same cast as Gerhardt, but thinner. And his hair is the same thick curls, but less wavy. Gerhardt's are relatively wavy, his are tighter. And he's still wearing young Freud colours. She says, Wendlin, Big Father Luitpold. Right, hello. It's really good to see you. Hello.
It's nice to see you again.
Again? Have we met before? Have we met before?
You were a lot younger
have we met
then.
before? And she says, Yeah. Shut your trap. You met him when you were about, I don't know, 6, 5, something
5,
like
6,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, probably won't remember him. Oh, right, yes, of course. Absolutely delighted to meet you. He says, I'm sorry that I can't offer you the proper, proper Black Rock. He says,
Circumstances beyond your control, my lord.
Yes. Poor bugger.
Yeah.
He says, I've had nothing to do with him. I don't know what to do with him. I've been feeding him.
I mean,
everyone's looking for him.
It feels like we should...
There ain't no way I can get him out of here.
Well, it's the tunnels.
I don't know where the tunnels are and I'm blind.
I know where the tunnels are and I am blind, but that won't help me.
All right.
Stop me.
Tunnels? Explain.
Explain what?
Uh-huh. You little bugger.
How do you think we got out?
I didn't know. I asked you about those blooming tunnels. Clipped you around the ear.
Can I attempt to dodge?
If you wish.
No.
I might mess, I'm blind.
That's fair.
I didn't.
Yeah, no, I failed.
No, I succeeded. Clip.
I deserved that.
She ducks, he ducks down and goes, oh, no, don't. There's no need to hit each other.
No, I deserve that, my lord.
As she, you little tyke. Little tyke.
Yeah, you should never...
Tunnels.
I'll point him, you should never lie to Sister Habercorn.
I would never lie to Sister Habercorn. I wouldn't...
You're a better lad than I was when I was your age, my lord.
Oh, right. Thank you.
He says and he bows.
Oh.
Bless him. All right, tunnels. Talk to me. Where'd you get into them?
Oh, info dump.
The tunnels are right at the back side of the main fort castle. You go in through the servants' entrance, down through into the cellars, and enter them just through there. They go onto the outside of the city walls, about a mile. It takes some time to get through them, but it's a single tunnel. It connects to nothing else. It's a bit dreary, but a mile out and right back into town for bevies and drinks. Perfect. It's just past the Moorsfield the garden, inside the trees in the Ravenswood. Excellent. As she goes, right, you certain?
Yeah, I mean, I can't guarantee that the old Dovers haven't found them or whatever, but that's where they were.
Right. Looks like you might get an opportunity to get home.
Yeah, but this is my home. I am a young Freud, he says, and Black Rock is my home.
Neufallion is your ancestral seat, my lord.
Your father's there.
Yes, I'd like to see Father.
And your mother.
Oh.
Can I also try and draw her away from him a little bit? Is our brother Gerhardt's there right now as well?
Oh. Give him a clip round the ear, will you?
Certainly. See how tonight's session's going to start?
Ding! Sister Habercorn. I have no idea what's happening up there. Right. Getting him in there might be a bit tough. I'll create a diversion. He says, I'll set some of the banners on fire. I'm blind. I'll walk into it.
I was going to ask, are there lots of banners like all over the walls, inside and out?
No, not that I've seen, but maybe. I'm a bit blind.
Of course, yeah, I'm asking the wrong person.
Says, right, so let's say 1 o'clock, first bell. When the bells ring, I'll go out, I'll stumble around, I'll be drunk, I'll set some of the pennants on fire, because I'll be carrying myself a torch. I'll go for a lantern so I splash the old fucker down the wall and set it all
the
off.
oil keep burning and all.
Yeah. There ain't that many guards here.
If you get a lantern that's on like a pole, that's even better.
I wouldn't carry one of those.
You might find one though.
No, a lantern. I'd have one of those. I use them. You can see when the shadows come forward, you know that you're about to hit a wall. Yeah, so whack. I'll do that. Do it round near front. There ain't that many guards around. I'll trap most of them. All you need to do then is get in and down into the cellar, and that's it. You lock it up hard though, so no one finds it. Yeah, can you do that from your?
Sorry, say that again.
Can you lock it up hard, so it can't be no, they won't find a way back in or nothing?
Can I? I mean,
not really. Often what you do is when you came back in, you'd scrape all the barrels over the top of it.
I can do my best to try and hide it, and
all right. It's going to be discovered eventually.
Yeah,
but only if they're looking for it.
Yeah.
I mean, there ain't nothing there. There ain't gonna.
We'll go for stealth first of all, and then I'll do my best to hide it, but hide it in a way that definitely won't draw more attention to it.
And you're all right getting up to the castle?
I'll do my best.
All right then. He says, looks like you were sent by the gods.
Does a little bit.
I've been sitting in this one for 3 months. More than that. What do you think? Gwendolyn says, right, yes, of course. I don't need to run anything through with a sword. He says, well, I think it'll be fine. He says,
can you be quiet, my lord?
Of course.
Not right now, I mean when we go. Can you move quietly?
I'll try my best.
He says, and that is how we arrive at 1 o'clock in the morning with a big fire burning at the front of Black Rock Castle.
Did not see things going this way.
As flames lick up a banner and she swears like a trooper with exceeding volume.
Sigma, bless you.
Indeed, on that side. People come out to help her. She swings at them with her broken lantern, drunk as you can imagine, slashes open the face of one of them. Not that you see that particular deed. As there screams and they say, drag her back to the chapel and calls it. What do we even do? It's enough that Dabernick himself, in his long night robe with a little sleeping hat, comes out the front row and shouts at them to shut the fuck up. He's trying to sleep. There's a fucking party tomorrow that he has to go to. God's damn it! And they're keeping him awake.
I really hope Emmanuel doesn't think this is what I was talking about. Like, oh, the trouble in the battle is gone now.
Your journey round to the back and down through into the servants' quarter, into the back, into the cellar, should be fine. 1d10 each, and let's see if we Dice of Doom ourselves. Oh, I've rolled miles out. 1. Dice of Doom to a... Pardon?
3.
Ah, superb! Okay, we're looking for on our Dice of Doom if anyone rolls a double or an 8. Neither of which occurred. A double being both of us rolling the same number. No one spots you going through. So you're aware of. Yeah. You spend some time listening, making sure that all the hectic hubbub at the front is dominating, that anyone walking the walls is passing. As you slide in round the back, go in through the door, which is unlocked. What the fuck's going to be in here anyway? Mm-hmm. No one. Slip in down there.
Is it possible to lock it?
There's no key. Okay. Slip in down there, unless you've got pick locks.
I don't. I don't know why I even looked at my character sheet there.
It's almost like you're with Gerhardt as you look back.
You're like total flashback.
Real flashback.
Yeah.
Because although he's thinner than Gerhardt and shorter than Gerhardt, he's also older than Gerhardt was when you were often sneaking out. And it really kind of works. As you look back and proper flashback as his face is there and you almost say, come on, Gerhardt. Although it was the opposite. It was often him leading the way because he was the one that knew it.
Yeah.
But now you do. And you're the one leading the way down into the cellar itself. And yes, this is going to be a little bit of a heft. Takes a little bit of time. You want to do it slowly so you don't make noises.
And try not to leave drag marks or any obvious traces of where we've been.
He sits at the side, fretting.
I'll ask him, because he probably wants to occupy himself, so I'll ask him to help me with his eyes to make sure that I'm not leaving any traces behind and things like that. And
he'll try to muck it all up.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Very diligent.
Yeah.
Until eventually, up goes, down you go, into the darkness. This is probably the most terrifying experience of his life. Over a mile worth of pitch darkness. Fortunately, he has the reassuring voice, indeed, of the father to see him through. Do yourself a leadership test for this one.
Yep.
Superb. More than any success will do. He's a relatively weak-willed fellow. He doesn't require much buoying up. Enough is enough. As you pick your way along, remember some of the old routes, but now you can actually sense them. You pick through here in pitch blackness and in light more than once. And it is a bit more cramped than you recall.
A bit taller than
I was. Never taller than about that off the ground, meaning you're constantly stooped. But eventually, you arrive yourself at the far end. And you burst through.
I mean, we pause and listen to make sure that there's nobody waiting for us on the other
Once
side.
you're certain there's no one there, the other side, leaves fall out. Over, covered it up, and he's shaking. Right, so is that it? Oh, are we at the castle now?
Oh, we're out of Ubersreik now.
But we were walking through there forever. I'm so tired.
For around a quarter bell. Come on, my lord. Chin up.
So,
walk in Sigmar's light.
The journey from Ravenswood out... presumably trying to avoid main roads.
Yeah.
Making our way along there. We're going to need a couple of things if this is going to be easy. Number one is not wearing the teal blue of...
Now, Luitpold has a change of clothes, but A, probably won't have brought it with him, and B, it wouldn't fit him anyway.
No, it wouldn't.
No.
So, yeah, he's not in the best place, either buying, stealing, fetching, or otherwise grabbing something from someone along the way. Yeah. He's a relatively short man on the cusp of adulthood.
But I can easily pass him off as an initiate.
Oh, easily.
Oh, I might have to cut his hair.
Yeah.
Sorry, my lord. I have got a grooming kit, though. I'm going to have to cut his hair and give him a tonsure.
Unroll it.
Yeah. And if I get him to ditch his doublet So he's got his shirt. We rip off any lace, so it looks a bit raggedy. That might work.
He is horrified.
No, you can't. You can't. He cries as you cut his hair.
I'm very sorry. It's a disguise, my lord.
Cries
It's a disguise, my
as
lord.
you scrape away.
It's just a disguise.
Tears flood down his face.
I'm going to look like some sort of horror.
You're going to look like an initiate of the cult of Sigma, my
This
lord.
is the worst day of my life.
Being chosen by the cult is a great honour, my lord.
Do yourself a charm test. I'm going to resist it with my mighty cool.
6 successes?
I did not
No,
resist.
he's a noble. 7 successes.
He is most certainly a noble. He shuts up eventually. And calmly accepts his horrendous fate. On the other side, cold, but not at all recognisable by anyone. We have ourselves a boy. This makes the...
And his instructions will be if we're around company, he doesn't talk.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This makes the ensuing journey actually quite easy. Wandering priests with young initiates are not, well, novitiates in your case, are not uncommon. Indeed, they're relatively common, particularly from obscure orders. So the chances of you being interrupted by most is low. Our Dice of Doom is going to be a single one from you, and that's it. No doubles or anything else, just one, which you can also reroll with fortune points if you want. Yeah, you're fine. You avoid encounters largely because of what you are. And it is worth describing a few of the things that you pass. The journey up to Newfalyon Castle is beset with troop movements. First, you have to get over into the duchy itself and up there, but that process is Altdorf, black-clad troopers of Tame. Trot banners all over the place, trot marauders, various different banners.
We kind of want to avoid them as well, right?
Over 100 dogs, war dogs, with horsemen running along with them over there. Second day demogryphs, large ones at that, and they're running wild with packmasters and horses, and they're just skiting across.
I mean, on the one hand, ooh, on the other hand, no.
No. Basically giant wingless griffins pounding their way across.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Luitpold would love to have one of those as a steed. Of course he would. But no.
Yeah. With whips occasionally cracking out as they go piling off. You see those on one day too. Cavalry, marching troops. It's not until the third day, it's a long convoluted set of travel, that eventually you pass by the long roads that lead up towards Black Rock Mines, which is separated by an enormous ridge of mountains. And these are not like Scottish mountains, we're getting higher than Alps almost here, but not quite the depths of the Grey Mountains where we're almost Himalayan, and just how ridiculously big the Grey Mountains are. They require a single pass through that pretty much. Well, two of them, Grey Lady, just beside there. But largely event-free as you pass by your first sighting of soldiers bearing the colours of the Jungfrauds. You can't be certain even they can be trusted. No one can be trusted. There's only one person to be trusted, and that's, well, one set of people who can be trusted, and that's pretty much his family.
Yeah.
The journey is slow because you're taking your time, and you know that no one's expecting anyone back for at least a week or two anyway. You didn't plan to do it this way, but here you are. Until eventually you arrive at the great bastion that is Newfalyon. You rarely came up here. You were up here sometimes, more commonly with Gerhardt here and back, and it hasn't changed much. It is still a great ridge which moves in a giant U. And the castle is built on the entirety of it with a great curtain wall connecting it and defending everything that lies inside. And it's not small. This castle has been built up over centuries. And on the inside, there's an entire, it's almost a city, a town. It's nothing in comparison to the size of Ubersreik. But it might be a little bit closer to what many think that Ubersreik is that have never been to Ubersreik, in that there are thousands living in there. You are aware, because Gerhardt would often complain about it when you were younger, that the father is constantly concerned about supplies for this place, and that's its biggest weak point. And although large farms lie in the upper areas and down in the valleys, they're not going to last for frightfully long if this comes to a proper siege. But having said that, though, Yufal Young has never fallen. Ever.
And if I know the graph, there will be lots of dry supplies stored inside that castle right now.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that along the way, there is engineering works aplenty. New forts being raised, new walls being raised, roads being blocked. But your father, no one particularly cares. If a priest of Sigmar is making his way through with his initiate, it gives you easy access. You even managed to get free board in 2 of the inns on the way there. Ooh. Yeah, it's marvellous. Throughout the entire time, Bendelin is fretting. He doesn't say much. The door closes. Right, so, do you think it'd be better if I had a pistol? He says.
No, you're in disguise as an initiate, my lord.
Well, I could hide it in my robes, just in case. Just in case we got ambushed by some of those horrible black-clad riders.
I don't have a pistol, my lord.
Right. We could commandeer one from some of the soldiers.
This hammer is all the protection we need, and my faith.
Right. Second day. I have an idea. As you're in the inn on the second night, what we could do, he says, is we could just sequester some of my father's soldiers, take them, commandeer them. That's the word. The word is commandeer. I'd like to commandeer. That's it. Not sequester. Commandeer. I'd like to commandeer maybe 100 of his soldiers so that we feel safer.
We can't be certain they can be trusted, my lord.
How could my father's soldiers not be trusted?
Well, what if they're not really your father's soldiers? What if they're people just wearing uniforms? False flag operations. It's happening a lot in this conflict already. I heard of it happening in Oldorf, so you never know. Best we remain under the radar.
Would anyone do that?
The radar? What's a radar? Best we remain clandestine, my lord, until we get closer.
But would anyone actually do that?
In war, some people choose less honourable paths.
No. Well, if I was in control, that would never happen.
Well, then let us all pray that day comes to pass, my lord.
But then my family would be dead.
Not necessarily.
He starts to cry.
Not necessarily, my lord.
Abdication.
It could be the
Are they all dead?
No. Your father could have risen in primacy and given you command somewhere else.
It is fair to
That's
say
his vassal.
That is a relatively standard summation of the up and downs of his conversations. He comes up with a cunning plan that's, of course, ridiculous.
One of the things I was thinking, now that Luitpold has his sort of augury type tools, he's probably going to want to start looking at those. Yeah. And what I imagine he would do is, like, every night he will, like, kind of like essentially pray and kind of like try casting the bones to see if it kind of helps to look for
bones say nothing.
To look for danger the next day.
Perfect.
Basically.
And you can do that pretty much every night.
Yeah.
And assign like a fortune point extra here or there. Perfecto. Oracular ability. But of course, beyond his mixture of cunning plans and terror, you eventually have Newfall Young itself. A long queue to get in. No queue to get out. People are just passing through, but a long queue to get in. Most of the people that are queuing to get in look like they are peasantry who have presumably bringing in various supplies. Some of them got carts and wagons. Some of them are picked up by soldiers and siphoned off separate so they can come in first, presumably because they're carrying something important that's being waited for on the inside. I will do one gossip test for the entire journey as well. No. Good.
You know what? I'm going to fortune point that, actually.
That's good.
Yeah, 5 successes.
Excellent. Oh, right. So that being the case, on the journey up, there is quite a number of the young Freud soldiers asking after and looking for an older gentleman with a skull eye patch.
Oh, look at! Oh
no! Yeah. And his attendant, who may be his wife, a white-robed woman from the Southlands.
Does that match any of the party that I can think of?
The doctor.
Oh, the doctor. Oh, he's with the doctor.
Flaster.
Oh no.
They're apparently missing.
Well, I mean, at least they've not been found, I guess. That's good. I mean, at least it's the Jungfraus looking for them.
Yeah.
That's better than the Altdorfers looking for them.
They did get off the barge early at the bridge
Yeah.
to go up by themselves, so they weren't with Gerhardt.
Yeah.
So presumably they got lost on the way. It's after all alien territory to them. New.
Well, Luitpold definitely won't ask any questions about him, but will be alert to other people talking about where they might have seen him on the off chance he happens to encounter Lucas and
Fair.
can save him as well.
Making your way through the gates into New Falyoung is just a matter of patience. There's a relatively long queue. And answering some relatively simple questions. Your business for being here, Templar Sigmar, that's really handy. You know as well there's a high Templar Sigmar here as well. Officially, this is a city.
Nice.
In that there's 4 temples of Sigmar in here and a chapel, the family chapel of Sigmar too. You've never spoken to any of the local clergy here. You do not know them, largely because you were tied to the Ubersreik side. And this is a completely different grouping, let's say, diocese. Although still the same lectoric. And you have more than enough reason to be visiting, so they don't particularly question it. They ask you for names because they're logging every name that's coming through. So what name would you like to give?
I think he'd just give his honest name, Luitpold.
Yeah,
Genuinely.
Luitpold, that'll do. And what will you give for the good old Wendelin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. My initiate.
Initiate.
Initiate Wendy.
What's his full name? Has he got like a random middle name I can use?
He's got. I think he's got.
Technically not lying.
Sigismund is one of his names.
Sigismund.
All of the.
Sigismund.
Sigismund will do fine. Oh, that'll go down very well.
Yeah.
Good lad. Here come the soldier. Right. And he shouts at me. As you make your way through. It is the strangest city. In that it almost lives on a V with a central core street and this rise of buildings and temples and markets and guild halls going up to the castle itself at the top, which encompasses it on all sides. It's a very tight population, which is often, as you have heard on more than one occasion, from some of the older Jungfrauds, in particular the grandmother who passed by you of Gerhardt, organised in the dwarven fashion, apparently, but it's tight. A lot of the houses are small, unlike the castle. Many bastions and walkways and all the rest that sit between them, where it is spacious. Loads up there, very little down there, as more and more people have come to the castle to earn money from it, to support it, to do whatever, and the space is just filled up in between. It's a pretty big place, but still not big enough for the enormous amount of people that are here. There's a few open muster grounds at different levels where soldiers can gather and do train, one of which is fenced off up the top. You know, because you've literally sat over that one. It's where the Jungfrauds themselves often train high into
He's
the
probably
back.
trained Gerhardt there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the Haletha way.
Probably one of the early iterations of the kind of slightly hostile training sessions that we've had on stream.
That's fair. The question is, how is he going to take the next step? How do you go from carrying the
I want to get him handed off ASAP
to up there?
But ideally I'd like the dream scenario would be to bump into his mum. Like, that would be the dream scenario. Like, here he is, your problem now, bye! And then leave. But the chances of that happening are slim.
So one could, for example, it's late in the day, find yourself a quick inn and gossip, or ask him, or go somewhere that you think would be likely to go. That's 3 obvious options. Any of those?
The other option would be to just publicly declare it now. So just go to the actual castle. And at this point now be like, we should be safe enough now that if I say who he is and who I've brought, that we should be brought at least to somebody senior enough. Because I'm assuming the banners that are up are like the Jungfrau banners.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Like,
very occasionally you'll see a black-clad trot soldier, but that's occasional.
So I guess the key thing I want to check is that the Graf and his wife are in residence, because what I wouldn't want to do is go up and discover that it's the trots that are there.
See the banners right up there. That one there. Oh shit. You're going to have to ask him. You're not sure which one's which.
Yeah.
You can sense the banners. That's really annoying.
Looking at the banners, my lord, is your father definitely in court here?
Father's here, mother's here, my aunt's here, my brother's here. My brother has a wife.
Oh, your oldest brother?
Trot?
Yes. I thought you knew, my lord, sorry.
No, I didn't know.
That's why there were so many black-clad soldiers on our way.
Oh, well, we've bolstered our armies.
Indeed.
I say, that's marvellous. It says, that's marvellous. So, yeah...
Marvellous.
That's good, isn't it? Isn't that good?
Yeah, I think that's good. So my instinct, my lord, is that perhaps now we're safely within our family and we go straight to the castle and tell them who you are. Does that seem
We
prudent to you?
don't need to be concerned about spies.
Well, do you know a secret way to sneak into the castle?
No, but if I were...
Do I know a secret way to sneak into the castle?
No, this place is
Yeah.
sewn up tight.
Yeah.
It was a constant challenge between you and Gerhardt to find a way out. Never found one.
Do you know the name of the priest in the family chapel inside the castle?
Yes, but I would actually advise a different location.
Oh, sure.
Right, so I would often be found in the temple of Verena. I know the father there very well. He is
Perfect.
exceedingly trustworthy.
Perfect. Let's do that.
So I would say that you brandish your hammer and we get our way up there, and if anyone gets in the way, we bop them. And
I mean, we should be able
straight
to
in.
pass by them. Our disguise is held up for days, my lord. But certainly, should it come to that, bopping,
Yes,
bopping
excellent.
will be had.
Excellent.
But we rely on the
Good.
wisdom of Verena. That
Wisdom
seems.
of Verena. Yes, excellent. Yes, excellent. Let's do that.
Let's do that. I like that. Good plan.
And off he goes with you. The Temple of Verena is not the largest example of its kind, but then many of the temples inside this particular city are on the smaller side. It is classically built, but buildings also bash right up to either side of it. On the inside, there is a relatively large library. And on this particular day, a priestess, not a priest, as he was hoping, just thumbing her way through a book in a wicker chair. Leaning back, she has herself a large bottle of wine and some writing equipment beside her, but she's not really paying that much attention to. Flicks her hair out of the way as she sees you come in. She goes, "Hello, your father?"
Indeed. We're looking for Father
Albrecht.
Abbott.
Albrecht.
Albrecht. Father Albrecht.
As she goes, no, he's dead.
Oh.
She says, "I'm frankly sorry. He died 2 months ago. Poison."
Poison?
Yes. Difficult times, Father. Difficult times. I'm being told that I should keep my mouth shut, but I prefer the truth. Direct, to the point. Poison. Dead.
Do I get any sense that she is blessed?
Nope. I don't even need to roll that. Nope.
Oh dear. Poison.
He whispers, his fingers go,
Poison. Madam was foul.
Indeed. I think we should
Horrid.
revert to my plan. Thanks very much.
She looks up. Is there anything you're looking for in particular? She says, "Books, anything you want to research?"
Not right now, although I'll likely be back.
Light be with you, light be with you. She says,
Walk in Sigmar's grace.
"Yes."
Right, so what do we do? This is a travesty. He was my
I'll-
best...
I'll-
And he starts to cry.
my best friend is dead!
I'll get him down a little quiet. It's like, shh, there we go. Let it out, my lord, but quietly. There
As
we
he
go.
weeps
Give him-
and
give him a
weeps and
cuddle. There we
weeps.
go. There we go.
And
man.
weeps and weeps and weeps.
That's interesting. That he's been murdered. I didn't want to. I'll say that I didn't want to ask her in case she couldn't be trusted.
So, where do we go? Right, how about the... I know. He says, the Temple of Scripsty. Scripsticity. It's an Italian word. I always say it wrong. Scripsticity. Script.
Can I get Lord Theology to see what the hell he's talking about? Yeah, 2 successes.
God of scribes. You've never said it out loud, though.
But there is one in Altdorf in the University District.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
So it is a god that you are aware of.
Yeah.
But you've never heard of it. You can just go, yes, that one.
Yeah, that's a good
one lesson ahead.
a good choice. Well, you frequented that temple also.
Yes, I would help them with the pressing of the parchments.
Marvelous. What's the name of the priest or priestess?
It's a priestess. Her name is Joanna. Says, and she has got a marvelous set of nails that she has painted.
Marvelous.
Marvelous. Whenever she does, she doesn't really. As he continues to natter on in the background.
Lead the way.
You lead the way over. Tut 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 tut. It's not that far away from here, as it turns out. It's down a bit, across a bit, down a bit, across a bit. The city's tight. You have to push past people, but nothing's that far away from anything else. And you arrive at, would not exactly call it a temple. It's more like a side building. And the stink of ink is coming from it.
I bet Gerhardt loves this place.
As he smells, Newfound young ink.
I bet your older brother loves this place too.
No, not really. He never really came here.
Who, Gerhardt?
No, at least not when I was here.
Interesting.
Maybe he did when he was younger. I don't know. As he comes and looks. Oh, yes.
Is she there? Claps. There's a woman there.
Is that her?
Who has a host of... she's sitting in front of about 30 candles, all of which have got something over the top gathering the soot. As he goes, oh, she's making her own. Why would she do that when there's Newfound young ink at hand? He's saying it quite quiet, almost to himself, giving himself a little internal commentary. And you can see her nails, each of which have been very delicately painted in black, gold, and deep blue. Each of which with a different pattern of a variety of different shapes. Although this one here has a skull.
Nice.
She's ready. Nice. As she is working away on some stitching, she looks over.
Mother Johanna?
Looks at him. Looks at you. Looks at him.
Gwendoline?
Palpably relaxes.
Mother Johanna, I have returned. She says, we have been adventuring, and I have returned, and we didn't need to shoot people, and we didn't need to hurt anyone. In fact, we were very brave.
His lordship was very brave, Mother.
Gwendoline, you're 15 years old now. You should perhaps be speaking in a less excited fashion. Why her?
Well, I smuggled him out from Ubersreik, and we've made our way up here avoiding all the patrols.
What, you haven't taken him up to the...
No, I was hoping you would help us get into the castle. I wasn't certain. There are spies and assassins everywhere. I didn't want to simply announce our presence at the gate.
Oh my God, I thought he'd already been found. I was actually quite surprised. Oh, let me just... yeah, I can drop that.
Can I help?
Dear. No.
Right.
Give me a moment.
Runs off.
Of course she doesn't want the blind man helping her put out all the candles.
Pulls on a cloak, runs over, puts a cloak over him.
Yes, I can take him up there. Are you looking for a reward?
Nothing financial. I just want to make sure he gets there safe.
Right. Come this way, Fenlin. Mother Johanna says, why are you making your own ink? Why aren't you just using the Newfound young ink? She says, no, I'm actually practicing so that I can help out over at the ink houses. Oh, right. Are you starting your own sly side business? Says, no, I am not doing that. I am simply learning the skills. I'm doing it very basically, and then when I go there, I'll do it properly. I didn't want to take up too much of their time, given everything that's going on. Right, of course. And how much do you think you'll make with your side business? As they make their way up.
It's about being of service, my lords. This is so like my conversations with Gerhardt. It's uncanny.
oh, those young Freuds. As you reach up to a small metal grate, she knocks on, and a guard goes, yeah, what are you looking for? Oh, Mother. And she goes, I have an appointment
to make with the Duke. How urgent? Extremely. Right. Give me a moment. I'll just see if we can get that organised. Hands off. The Duke's not very busy these days, from what I hear. Mostly fretting, doing very little else. What is there to do here, except for issue more orders to build, issue more orders to gather, issue more orders to maintain? Very little to do, don't you think? Yes. Is that why you started your side business then? Bentley, do be quiet. Sorry, Mother. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just, I think there could be a lot of money in this. You know how much they make with the Neutral Young ink? We could start our own brand, Vendlin ink. It'd be Johanna ink, surely. I was just thinking that perhaps I could be your silent partner. Silent. She nods. Yes. Why didn't you try that?
Genuinely. I'm going to do a cool test to see whether he can rein it in. No, he can't rein it in. He sniggers.
Comes down. Yeah, you can come in.
Are you happy?
I'll come in with you if I may.
We have a priest with us. Sima.
He looks over and goes, well, we'll see if he can come in. He's in. You're in. You were led.
Still time for assassins to strike.
All the
Traveling
way
with
through
Gerhardt has made me very paranoid.
a host of back passageways until eventually you're up into a corridor you recognise. And you're near the back of the Haletha wing, named after the goddess that quite prevalently worshipped across the south of the Reichland, and also parts of Talbotland, on the smaller side. Fertility. And you make your way through there until eventually two guards wearing the good old blessed young Freud colours, their halberds crossed, slide them back. And he says,
no, there's also a priest.
Says, what's your name?
Luitpold.
Father Luitpold.
Yeah.
He goes off and he comes back. Don't know you.
He does.
Well, he said he didn't know no Father Luitpold.
I mean, he does, right? Like, we've definitely met.
You've met multiple times.
Yeah.
Indeed, he has charged you to look after his son more times than you can shake a stick at.
I mean, you could... He has personally given me orders to look over members of his family in the past. He knows me.
All right.
Tell him I was Sister Habercorn's charge.
Well, I just said you were a blind priest.
Oh, I wasn't blind back then. I only lost my eyes recently.
Oh, bad luck.
Yeah.
Comes back in. Comes in and there's a far older looking Duke of Black Rock only. His eyes are red rimmed and there's bottles of wine.
Oh no, that's not a good sign.
White, red, one surrounded by ice, multiple goblets, most of them half filled with different levels of liquid, and a small tumbler of water. As he looks up, looks at her, looks at you, looks at Vendlin. Vendlin. Looks at you. Looks at Vendlin. You've got the wrong son.
Is Gerhardt not arrived yet?
No, he's here.
Again,
Vendlin.
palpably relaxes.
Vendlin.
So, we had an adventure, Father.
Vendlin, I don't want to talk to you.
Right, Father. He says,
He looks at you. Looks out over the grey mountains, all reefed through with mist, because he's sitting on a balcony. Looks up at her. I trust you with the vehicle that we used to enter here. Do you know what? You can go. Goes. Vandalin.
Yes, Father.
Let us put you somewhere quiet.
Father?
I would rather people did not know you were here.
Right. For spy reasons.
Exactly, Vandalin. I would like you to go to the temple of Shalia,
Why?
because that's where your mother is, and she fears you're dead.
Right.
Do not be concerned if she's talking to your brother.
Right, well, you know, I could talk to him too.
He isn't there, he says.
I don't understand.
Yes, you do, Vandalin. You are not an unintelligent boy.
Oh, right, so she's... Oh, and he starts to cry, tears pouring down his cheeks. Is mother ill?
Yes, Vandalin. And you are her favorite.
Right, I will...
You will do everything that needs to be done, Vandalin, he says.
Yes, Father, of course. Whatever needs to be done.
But do not interrupt her conversations with your brother. She does not respond well to it.
That might be difficult. He says, well, you know how it is. Perhaps I should have a pistol.
Vandalin,
I'm sorry, Father.
I do not need a boy. I need a man. And he pulls himself up. It's a start. Sit by the gods.
Yes, Father.
Goes off. You are not the person I expected to bring him here.
If I'm honest, my lord, until Sister Habercorn showed me to him, I was not expecting to bring him here myself.
My son is attempting to organize you a breastplate, but he doesn't know how big you are. He tried to draw it. He did not succeed. I had a rather irate conversation with my seneschal concerning it. Report down to the armourer. He'll make anything you require.
Thank you, my lord.
I would prefer if you moved separately to my son. We have heard many, many tales concerning the pair of you, and captured several spies looking for the pair. If you can keep your head low, that would be my preference.
Of course.
You've done a good job.
Thank you, my lord.
My son is maturing. He has a long way to go. You are also maturing. When last I spoke to you, there was a deep well of resentment, being asked to do anything. But now you seem content with your lot, and you understand what needs to be done. Good. He says, my son intends to leave, and I'm going to give him permission to do so. I haven't given it to him yet. keep your head low. Keep them alive. And hunt down every last one of those cultists. Do not spare any of them.
No mercy, my lord.
Dismissed. And that is how he finds himself 2 days later with not just a shiny, but a very shiny
Nice.
new breastplate. Held in place, but not just that. Armor.
Ooh. Wow.
Plates on legs and arms. Tying those buckles in, he almost feels a tear coming to his dead eyes.
It's like, as soon as I get to the bar, I'll take this all off so I don't drown. But, you know, but for now.
But, wow.
This makes me want to put my fancy cloak on.
Wow. It's been a long, hard job getting one of these again.
And Luitpold being Luitpold will probably also ask the armour for tips in order to keep it in good repair.
Yes, you'll be given oils for both the leathers and the metals, and some suggestions for how to keep it in good care, what to do should you get nicks, damage, or any similar, and to make sure that you do take it back in whenever it receives damage to an armourer.
Yes.
Preferably one of some skill. Most damage can be easily just hammered back into place. You have a functional rather than pretty version, largely because that also ensured it could be made to your actual rather unique dimensions and time, because you've got a long thin
Has it got room for if he buffs out a little bit?
well, it's got straps, so you can push. And, it's perfect.
Because he ain't that strong yet, but I've got plans.
Yeah, quite. Let's not miss those. I think that that gives us the perfect opportunity to draw everything to a close for you there. Because in no time at all, you'll be back down in Ubersreik, back in, assuming that... Let's just give him one last roll. He doesn't dice of doom himself to horror before he gets
As
there.
he's done before. It's close, but 7.
No, we're right, we're okay. Although I will log that number for after.
Maybe it was 8, but he foretold something and that nudged it to a 7.
I quite like that.
Yeah.
As he scries the bones each evening and chooses his route accordingly, until eventually he arrives back in Ubersreik, having passed through the great gates of that enormous fortress city, to arrive at the barge about an hour and a half probably after Gerhardt arrives, with both of his... It would be unfair to call them servants. Let's call them henchmen. You took far longer, more circuitous route. Keep yourself safe, following the signs, till eventually you get there. Which brings us to a close with this particular episode of the Tales of Ubersreik. In a couple of episodes, you'll find out exactly what happened with Gerhardt when he was up in exactly the same place. Looking forward to seeing how they compare. Beyond that, ciao for now.